So now that Zeta Division are actually getting wins throughout their brackets, throughout Masters, why are we not giving them the credit that they're actually getting good wins? I think now I might have to start hopping on the Zeta Division train. I think they will be able to get this win against Paper X.
It's the 19th, baby. Let's fucking go. What month is it? January, February, March. It's fucking the 19th of April. Holy shit, boys. Let's fucking go. We are in the midst of some insanity going on over in Rejykavik. I think that's a safe way to put it here. Although,
did you just have to count through your fingers to know that it's tomorrow? That's 420.
Vans, look at me. Look at me.
He's already prepped for it.
All right, it's been a fucking bro. It's been a few days, man. I mean, you are up at what 1 a.m. You've been how many VODs you watched in the last day?
Shit. I mean, just today I was trying to catch up to all of them because I was a little bit AFK for like the last 4 or 5 days, traveling outside of the city in Vietnam, trying snail, trying different things, trying to find a gym, and it almost feels like with all these time changes I'm currently doing, and the more we get into these shows for Valoranting while I'm here in Vietnam, I'm losing my enthusiasm. So I'm like day 40 of like solitary confinement or some shit, and I'm just like, yep, I'm just grinding through it.
I mean, to be fair, it's it's kind of an interesting situation because all the game times are pretty shit for you. They're fucking awful times for you to watch. And this is what I was thinking. Obviously, we're joined by Tanny, who's repping the Runaway sweater, which is a fucking classic, by the way. I gotta say.
Yeah, I love it. Runner sent it to me himself, actually. So.
Oh, really?
This one, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got
a long time ago.
That's Overwatch royalty there.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys reckon about if this Masters event is on more of an Asian time zone? What do you reckon the viewership looks like? Because some people have been like, it's not great that the NA and EU teams are getting knocked out, in this tournament. It's not great for viewership. And my answer is, because this is primetime EU and like morning NA. What do you think happens if this is in like Korea or some shit to viewership? Now that we know what fucking what kind of viewership Zeta Division can bring.
Yeah, I mean with Zeta, like Japan must bring so many viewers. It's like just the Turkey of the East. I reckon it's got those sort of fans,
If you're a Zeta Division fan out there, that's not an insult, okay? Because I saw what happened on the fucking Plat Chat show.
Very dedicated fans.
Yeah, dude. Did you see what I saw? Fucking Kurt tweeting about
the hate they got.
I mean, to be fair, they did take the Zeta Division logo and flip it upside down and at the bottom of the record. Look how wrong they look now, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I think come on, I fucking predicted that Fnatic would get out of their group. Like, we were way off base. In fact, all three of us, when Mitch was here, all three of us predicted that. So I don't think this has really turned out at all the way we expected. Ishiki in the chat says it might be an issue of the podcast, not in Japanese. You fucking say that. You say that. Platchat. I don't know. Bren watches a lot of anime. I don't think that's in Japanese either. I don't even think he gave him a fucking gratuitous Omae wa mo shinderu on that fucking show. And still, their comment section was full of extremely angry people that hail from the Japanese region. So, now we have Brazil, we have Turkey, we have Japan, we have these very vociferous fan bases that are popping up.
Well, and then we have the NA fan base just shitting on their own teams.
Oh yeah. So the NA fan base are like fans of Blizzard games. They shit on their own games way harder than anybody else's. Overwatch fans fucking hate Overwatch.
Yeah,
that's the truth.
I do.
Anyway, my producer's like, "Yo, can we fucking talk about our topics?" All right. You want to know what we're talking about the show today? No points for guessing, by the way. They even gave me a minute to do this. So, Zeta Division, we're going to talk about them. We're bringing in our friend Daks, of course, and Blackenblue to talk, a little bit about this. Why do we got a fucking not a minor region caption underneath that? What fucking goes with that saying? All right, we're trying to get you to watch the video, so whatever. Here's some clickbait for you. We want to discuss them and sort of the matches they got through. I'm going to talk about OpTic, obviously the final hope for North America, which is fucking scary. I won't lie, considering this team is really about just like that individual pop off moments, and we talked about last week with Anders. How this sort of team is like supposed to win. That, I mean, you want to talk about individual pop off team? You had to play against Loud, so get fucked.
Yeah. Well, at least for now too, it's like. Yeah, NA's last hope is OpTic, but at least we still made it further than Europe this time as well in EMEA, which is why on our show today, thankfully we have Tanny that has the balls to come on the show Mitch Ben is pretending he's sick. Like, there's no fucking Masters today. So why the fuck is he not here? Eh? Where the fuck are you, Mitch Ben?
No, he got on the piss. I saw if Lauren is tweeting that she's been drinking, then everyone's been drinking. Because getting her to come out and have a few is the fucking mate. It's the Sisyphean endeavor. I'll tell you fucking what. She didn't used to be in the day, mate, but now she just likes to be a blanket gremlin, you know, watch Netflix or whatever when you're at events. It's so fucking hard to get Lauren to come out and get on the piss. So yeah, they probably had a good time.
Yeah, those talent and production parties are next level from what I hear. So
yeah, I mean, for sure. But a lot of the time, I mean, they would have been taking shit so seriously because obviously they're all fearing for their jobs at all times because they work on a Riot broadcast. So like they'd have to be really, really down the line while the show's on. Anyway, we've got two very impressive and attractive gentlemen waiting in the wings. So let's bring them in. Let's start to talk about Zeta Division. Let's bring one more time. It's going to be Daks joining us, and for the first time ever, Blackenblue. So we'll go Daks first. Daks, what's up, bro? How you looking good for 1 a.m., man? I'm not gonna lie.
Well, you know, we've been doing the Filipino broadcast for quite a while, so our body clocks are pretty much in sync. But of course, come on, dude, we're talking about Zeta and the Asian cameras here on Valoranting. We're gonna be pixelized. Look at Bansley, come on.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I mean, Blackenblue looks great. He was frozen for like a good 15 seconds, but also his camera's fucking sick.
I think I'm back now.
Compared to mine. Yeah.
Blackenblue,
so that's good.
Obviously, first time on the show for you, so thanks for coming on, man. For those that don't know much about you, everyone knows who Daks is, but for those of you who haven't encountered you before, especially like NA fans that don't fucking watch any other regions, yeah, he's got a huge dick. But Blackenblue, tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
Oh, so yeah, I'm the dude that Daks chose to help pull in here. I cast VCT with him quite often. We do APAC, LCQ, VCT, whatever comes our way, we do. I'm also the analyst, kind of like stand-in coach for Southville Esports, which is #1 seed for the Philippine scene. So that's something we're proud of. But hopefully we can get even further. So yeah, that's me. I'm a caster. I also like doing coaching stuff.
Hell yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah,
where the fuck was the coaching stuff in our rank games, man? All I heard was peek, peek, peek. I mean, and we still went like fucking two and like 3. Well, we won one game.
We went.
If you saw what happened in Paper Rec, that was pretty much what.
True.
We just didn't have the aim, man. And
true.
Come on, we handicapped ourselves. So, guys, if you ever saw one tweet that kind of had no context whatsoever on Vansley's page, no charity, it just basically meant we would not let each other buy a gun for each other. It would be whatever you can buy. You would force buy for yourself. Welcome to SCA. You get no charity here, man.
That's true.
You gotta fucking pull yourself up by your own damn bootstraps. Yeah. All right, can we talk about a team that's had to fucking do that? Talk about no charity, right? Here's a team that came into the event that got, rated probably the lowest of all the teams at this event, right? I mean, we definitely didn't give Zeta Division like a whole lot of credit, and I know that other podcasts were in the same. So it's not like us just being papega as fuck and trying to get you to watch and get angry. Everyone was kind of like this, except for maybe you guys, right, out there in SEA. Obviously, this team has impressed us, I think, through their run through the tournament. I guess we can show you sort of the run so far for them. I do want to say I was not convinced about this team until they beat DRX, because let's be honest, guys, they beat Fnatic, who were a weakened roster after losing to DRX. Then they beat NIP in a close one, who were not even the highest seed from their region. And then they go on and beat Liquid, right, who shouldn't G2, excuse me. They lose to G2 first, and then they beat Liquid, who aren't even fucking supposed to be in Iceland. Yeah. So at this point, I'm like, man, I don't know about these guys. This is very sussy. Then they go up against DRX, and we have this just insane matchup, and obviously, they're pretty emotional about it. But let's just throw it back, right? Did you guys at the start of this tournament expect this from Zeta Division? What were your thoughts on like the group stage and like how they got out of there? Because it was, come on, it was not easy, right?
I think I'm gonna start this to preface that. In all honesty, I agree exactly with your sentiments. I was also not as convinced with Zeta Division until they beat DRX, because in the APAC pecking order, right, Blackenblue, it's always been DRX at the top, then the high tier SCA teams, the high tier Korean teams, SEA Korea together, and Japan all the way at the very bottom. So in reality, this is pretty much the same kind of expectation. I did expect them to beat Fnatic. I did expect them to beat Team Liquid, just because these are teams that are very inconsistent, and
Yeah.
Zeta Division is a team that can punish that kind of thing very 50-50 on NIP. But it really just goes to show they pull out all the stops there for that matchup against DRX. Now, to be fair, DRX does. I'm gonna say this: DRX is a team that tilts so hard as soon as they lose one. It's because they had that win streak. They were so spoiled with victories. So if they actually lose a match, it just all falls on the part. But Zeta Division, they've been trying so hard to really capitalize on those moments. And Nico, especially you seeing them in scrims, right? This is a completely different Zeta Division compared to the absolute Jupiter of the past. And also the fact that this is a squad that really feels more oriented towards an aggressive Valorant play, which really fits in the style of what APAC is in a whole.
Yeah, and it almost not just fits into the style of what APAC is in a whole, but kind of what Valorant is right now. You see many teams, no matter what region they're from, kind of foregoing more utility agents and going for more aggression. You have the Brimstone, you have the Omen. And I was kind of expecting improvement over from Japanese teams in general, just based on what we've seen during scrims and just the changing kind of culture in gaming there is in Japan. Like, it never really was a region or a country known for PC gaming, known for FPS PC gaming, but that has been changing in the past few years. In 2019, actually, one of the 3 top esports in Japan was a PC shooter called Rainbow Six. I know it's a very different game, but that's something you're not going to expect from a region that isn't necessarily known for PC FPSs, and I think that already was a very telltale sign of things to come.
Yeah, just immediately slide in real quick, guys, because the thing is that new additions of Zeta, you have 2 guys who were part of that Overwatch World Cup team of Japan 2018-2019. I remember casting 10 back in Greenleaf, seeing his progress. And Sugar Zero, he improved so much from LCQ, R6 player, really stepping on up. This is truly the best and brightest Japan has to offer without a single import on their squad.
Yeah, even for me when I looked at Zeta Division as well, it's like I think it was on our own show here, Mitch and Tanny, where I was like, Zeta Division maybe has potential like dark horse because of players like Depp. Like Depp, I haven't seen him play before until he actually joined into the Zeta Division roster. I was like, it could look pretty good. They have good, fragging abilities, but after watching their games versus, Crazy Raccoon or Rejects or anybody else that was playing within the Japanese region, I feel that Zeta Division for me was kind of like the DRX of the Korea or the Loud of Brazil, where those teams weren't really tested outside of their own region, right? Which is why even for me going into this tournament, I even had Loud really underrated under my belt too.
But teams like Zeta Division get to play against like SEA and Korean teams on a relatively regular basis, right? So it's not as if they're like stuck in a fishbowl where they just fucking eat everybody. Like they get a decent amount of exposure to these other regions, right? Surely
they'll get the exposure from the other regions too. But we're really considering a team like Zeta Division to be coming out on top when, like, for example, the hype was really around Lakia with Exist or whatever that team name is called, right? Or was it going to be Crazy Raccoon with a new iteration from Neth into that roster? Was that going to be that team? Because they were the team we were talking about a lot in like the other Masters of last year. Would they be able to make a comeback and represent Japan very well and then compete very well at the international stage? Zeta Division for me was like that number 2 going into 2022 because I had so much hype around Crazy Raccoon before. So, yes, they have the practice from the other regions, but they'll still always get slapped at the international stage.
Can we set up a contrast then for this team, right? Because I want to look at 2 matches, yeah? I want to look at their G2 game, and then I want to look at their DRX game, okay? Because, Zeta versus G2, I mean, I think right now, like G2 obviously always a little bit looser, but, we know they play Breach. We know they can play the Chamber pretty effectively. Avova obviously is always playing the Omen. Split is like a really good map for G2. It's kind of where they want to be, right? A lot of the time they didn't pick it in this matchup, I don't think. I think Zeta might have actually gone for it, but this series is like, I would say a little underwhelming on Split, especially from Zeta, right? They're still playing the Astra, right? And they're interestingly, much like DRX do, they're still using the Sky a fair bit. How do you think Zeta looks here against G2? And because this is where I think there were definitely some concerns about whether they even get out of this lower bracket at all, right? After this matchup, I think a lot of people were wondering sort of where this team goes next.
Honestly, I thought this matchup was really unfortunate for them because G2, this entire comp is built around countering the Astra Viper comp. And when you go into this team versus G2, who've played a lot of these sort of teams in EMEA, who know exactly how this comp works,
Yeah.
You just start off on the back foot immediately, and it just didn't do them any favors playing this like slightly outdated comp, I would say, right now. Even though it's proven to work for them before, but when you come up against people who actually know what they're doing against it, it's just not going to end well.
So how does this fully counter the this comp that you currently see from Zeta Division?
It's basically
the
double duelist
the chamber
comp.
utility. Okay, okay.
No, it's not even the chamber utility. It's just the double duelist comp, but with like a slight twist. But you still get to keep the like the cipher trips basically with the chamber. But the double duelist comp is designed that they have so many smokes and so many walls and everything. You just go straight through them. Like that's what it's designed to do, and you can just get picks. You can back off immediately, and they have nothing to like re-aggress on you because they're playing such a slower style with this comp. And if
like once they get forced off their utility and forced off their posts, they really struggle to get back there.
Yeah, and you can see the amount of value Mixwell was getting here. Like on A, they were having so much trouble clearing him from CT. Every single round, he was just able to get one pick at least, and then TP out with nothing done like to him. They have
what is this? Like Zeta actually play for retake in this round. Like they just give up the site.
Yeah, they have no way to actually like force them out of their positions. So like Mixwell can be holding with an AWP, like with the chamber AWP, and they just have to deal with that. They have to basically just hope the flash like forces him back, but he's not going to do that as a chamber, So this was a really unfortunate matchup for them, in my opinion.
Those big shutdowns also on 10, if I remember correctly. You want someone like 10 and maybe Crow, since you're on the Sky, to actually get that kind of push. But if you're gonna be playing double control and all the utilities on their side doesn't really care about all those sidelines broken, and then you can have someone to snap on out, it really feels like that's where some of the more EMEA standards really fit in against countering what APAC can do. And I think as a whole, that is that kind of contrast of styles that can deliver for the EMEA side if they just don't get overrun, if they keep their cool, and they especially know how to play very, very defensive and held back. It really is very effective against teams like Zeta, teams like Paper Rex, who want to go for that much of map control as possible. And if you contest them, that's where they punish you.
I still find that Zeta Division still has a big test up ahead against PRX overall, because I think I also agree to what you were saying before, Mitch, when you're talking about how they were being tested on every stages that they went throughout Masters so far, but never really been tested at their full potential yet, right? I think their first real test was going against G2 because they have the exposure of playing other Japanese teams and other Southeast Asian teams, but maybe not as much in terms of like EU teams and that type of play style. And we know, G2 was on like a big hype ever since it got that second win, being able to play. Yeah, exactly. Take the chance of being able to try to qualify throughout the EMEAs and then just run with it. I think that's been G2 for me overall in this Masters. And then if you look at Zeta Division, they were playing against a Fnatic that lost a lot of players going into the matchup. Then again, they had to play against NIP, where for me, no disrespect to NIP, but they weren't looking like the strongest team going into Masters for me.
Well,
right?
they fucking got through LCQ. Hello? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I genuinely think they were the weakest team in this tournament. Like,
yeah.
And I think you'd be hard pressed to find someone who would like disagree with that.
Sure. Well, I mean, obviously, Crew had a really rough one as well, right?
Exactly. So at least for that, like G2 for me was like their biggest test so far, to be like, oh shit, this is actually like might be similar to looking at Japanese teams or Zeta Division playing against European teams back from last year, where now when they get to play versus DRX, we all mentioned it. We all know that they're scrim buddies and they know each other's play styles. So when it comes down to like maybe not having as many officials face to face between these two teams, when it comes down to official games, there's still great opportunities to anti-strat or understand like the tendencies, like, oh, they're going to do this right now, and you can start preparing for those a little bit more as the Zeta Division roster. So I think that's why like they were still able to get a really nice upset series against DRX. But I don't know how it's going to look like. I mean, I guess they do have practice and exposure from PRX as well. So I think that's also going to be a really, really good game.
Are there any games that Zeta have won that don't have asterisks next to them? Because I know a lot of people are saying
That's what I'm saying. That's what
a
I'm
lot
saying.
of people are saying that DRX got fucking mentally boomed after that game against OpTic. You know, like how fair is that to say? And how and can we expect to see that level of performance from Zeta consistently for the rest of this tournament?
Yeah.
You know.
I mean,
Yeah.
the big concern for me is that they actually got destroyed by DRX first, you know? And then they learnt from it the second time they played them. And I'm kind of scared that the same thing is going to happen versus PaperX, where the first time they'll play them is actually going to be really bad for them. And then if they were to play them again, then they could actually do way better. Like,
right.
But yeah, going into it, like they didn't seem that prepared versus the original DRX game. And then they clearly did their homework. And, you know, they completely shifted up how they play and basically everything about them. And they came out on top afterwards. But can they do the same when they have to play a team for the first time? It's hard to tell because also you say like it's from the same region, but you don't actually play the teams who you know are like probably going to be your opponents in the future because you
unless it's
you don't want to give away anything to them. Right?
Yeah, exactly. For this exact reason, like the VCT teams don't play each other normally, and like same with the Rejykavik teams, they just find other teams to play. So even in the region, would PaperX have been avoiding Zeta because they already knew that, you know, it's a pretty good team? They're definitely going to be there because they're the best in Japan. Let's just not play them.
I mean, I'll interject right there. The thing is, SEA teams are very happy to scrim teams that aren't in Japan. Are in Japan rather, or in Korea. There's always like a list for DRX scrims basically that they love to do because of the fact that we're separated from each other until Masters. What's more important is for us to get to that stage in the first place, to make it to that global stage and start to deal with it. And I have to say, for Zeta, they should have been somewhat prepared for DRX at the start, but DRX was more prepared for them in the first place. And honestly, Tani, I agree with you. Coming into this matchup versus PaperX, I kind of do expect PaperX to honestly smash Zeta. Maybe it's a little bit of that C bias, but from what we have always seen so far from the Japanese scene is this is what SEA does, but SEA does it better. The thing about Zeta Division, though, is especially after that first series against DRX, it just wasn't the last show. And I think that was one of the biggest criticisms of them all the way back when they had that Jupiter roster in Masters last year. That was just Laz stepping on up. But now you have 10, you have Zep, you have Sugar Zero, who's really performing, you have Crow with that extra bit of leadership as well. This is a team that has 5 full players, not slumping, not having that kind of a difficult time compared to when we saw them in DRX, where it was again, oh shit, this is gonna be the last show again. Everyone's gonna say, oh, Laz deserves to be in a better team. Oh, Laz deserves to be in a better region. It's proving to us that the Japanese scene can actually provide us talents that doesn't need imports in. And honestly, Zeta making it to top 4 is already gonna be such a good sign for the Japanese region as a whole.
I want it to be a top 3. I feel bad because I really like PRX as well, but I want it to be at least a top 3 for Zeta Division.
If Zeta can beat PRX, then I'm kind of convinced, right? But I really do feel like I don't know if I'm just holding on to this for no good reason, but
I get it.
DRX, look at what they did on fucking Split. Like they were just fucking what was going on that map from DRX?
Yeah, that was a weird map, honestly. Like, that was so hard to see. But
that was not
I really want Zeta to win actually over PRX, just because PRX rely way too much on someone to pop off, and if it's not Forsaken or Jing, they have a real hard time in their games. Whereas Zeta, actually, it's so even across the board. Like from top to bottom, the difference is so minimal, and like everyone's pulling their weight there. And I think that's the sort of team I want to see succeed. You know, not just like Forsaken go kill or something.
Blackenblue, what do you think? Do you think that we can expect like this same level from Zeta after the DRX game, or do you think that like there were other factors at play? You know, what can we expect from Zeta?
Yeah, to his point a while ago, like probably their biggest strength is the fact that they can go back and if they've matched up against the team once, they can kind of review that and really make proper adjustments. Now, I do think that they will still struggle against Paper Rex their first time matching up against them, but I do think they're going to match up better than they did DRX their first time. Why? Because DRX are the least APAC style team in APAC as a whole. There is no other team that plays their style. Every other team we're going to find in APAC kind of plays a lot more, especially in SEA, kind of plays like Paper Rex. You saw it from Team Secret last year. You saw it from, I guess, Xersha is like the most DRX kind of style C team. So for Zeta, they're used to playing against these type of teams, and teams that like to snowball, teams that like to, as we like to call it, just train wreck over anybody that stands in their way, and once they get momentum, push on forward. Now, the thing about Zeta is, at the very least, and as Daks has talked about, they have some of the best players that you can ever find in Japanese FPS history. You look at what they've got, and you even look at LCQ last year, and the best team, honestly, in my opinion, before Zeta in Japanese Valorant history was that Northception squad. Now, yes, they had some Korean players on them, but the Japanese players on them, now here on Zeta, are part of the biggest reason why they are in this place in the first place. So, to that question, yes, I do think they're going to perform pretty well versus Paper Rex. Will I put them above Paper Rex to win? No, maybe it's a bit of bias. Who knows? But I do think that they are going to fare better Paper Rex in their first matchup than they did versus DRX on their first.
Yeah. I definitely do think it would be unfair. Like, I do agree with, in a sense, that there's an asterisk on all these matches that we've seen Zeta Division win so far. But also, that's the other reason why I find that it could be very insulting for a Zeta Division squad, which is very similar to like if when Chet had the interview where they lost their game, and then he's like, "Yeah, we're focusing on ourselves. We didn't play our best." Cringe comps, whatever the fuck, but you don't really need to praise the other people going through, right? So now that Zeta Division are actually getting wins throughout their brackets, throughout Masters, why are we not giving them the credit that they're actually getting good wins?
I mean, their asterisks are way smaller than like most other teams. I feel though, like they're you're just saying it because like these aren't teams which you expected to make it very far or whatever either.
I guess so.
I think the only real one is versus Fnatic because they had 2 stand-ins.
Yeah.
But all the others, like, they're very legit wins. Like, let's not take anything away there. And they absolutely deserve those ones,
Sure. I mean, again, like, let's be honest, Liquid were probably going to disband if they didn't get given the spot in Iceland. Let's just be honest. That was definitely fucking, like, the way that, like, Soulcast is like, oh, guys, we're going to change everything and you're going to give us another chance. And, like, sorry, like, not trying to be funny, but they were not in good shape. They weren't traveling well at all.
Yeah. But sorry, just to add real quick though, the good thing that I like about that though, at least for Liquid, is that they didn't have to go through like any type of like real big roster changes or trying to figure shit out with like other players outside of who they currently have. Where we've always been very adamant and prone to like teams being like, they shouldn't do roster changes. Give them some time. Give some time to like prep, to develop, and all that shit.
Where is this narrative about 3 days no sleep coming from for Zeta Division? Like, what is this just nonsense, right?
Well, they had to play games every single day to get out of the group.
One game a day? Fucking blow me down, mate. Who cares? It's one best of 3. Are you kidding me? One best of 3. Oh, come on. That's fucking piss week. Look,
it is different from 2002 to today. I mean, one BO3, but having to play 3 in a row where there's a lot to prep
fucking MR12, dickhead. It's MR12. Sorry.
To be fair, like Riot is normally pretty good with this. Like in all of the other events, like Champions Masters before this, they have spaced them out so no team like has consecutive game days.
Any
basically,
team can just go, "Oh, we didn't sleep very well," Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I don't get the point of making these sort of.
And hell, they still fucking made it through, so it doesn't really. Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's so weird.
Exactly. I mean, yeah. See, here's the thing though: if Zeta are gonna win or get into the final, they have to win a best of 5. The elephant in the room for me is their Haven, which gets picked against him, and obviously, so they only have positive records. Their Fracture is really good. They win like almost 70% of their defensive rounds on Fracture. Their Icebox has been really solid, right? We saw that. Icebox keeps coming up. They keep looking really good. That's it, though. Those are the only 2 maps where they have a positive win rate. Obviously, they got rolled on Bind by G2. They got rolled on Haven. Their Haven, they have a 13% defensive round win on Haven. They are 3-21 on defense in Haven. Does this team have the kind of map pool to have resilience against these other 3 teams in a best of 5. They have only 2 maps with a winning record on, and you need to win 3 in a BO5.
Yeah.
I mean,
just ban
but
it.
you still,
That's what they
you
did
can
against
still
Zero.
ban one. Like, would you not just ban Haven at that point?
Yeah.
I mean, I hope so. But they didn't do it. They didn't ban in a best of 3 against TL, right?
To be fair,
No.
I don't think I'd ban Haven versus Team Liquid.
Zeta ban
because-
Ascent.
Yeah, but honestly, Team Liquid play this so basically. They do the same thing every round. Like, I'm pretty sure we discussed this in the past. But like,
Mhm,
they have
mhm.
one plan, and it's always just the same thing. And Nivera getting this much value on like a site shouldn't be the case. And if I was the opposing team, I would just go into this match so confident that I could be able to like counter him. You know,
Okay, I would
which
just
is probably
you could
what
just
they
ban their
did. I
fracture.
think.
Ban their fracture. Zeta will ban Haven. They'd still have to
Yeah.
play Bind potentially, or this whole gamut. Breeze for fuck's sake.
Yeah, Breeze.
haven't
I don't
played
think they'll be
Breeze.
that good on, honestly. It just comes down to like aim duels on that map, and I think the rest of the teams left in this tournament have better individual like just individual level,
They've
to be
been,
honest.
I don't know, man. The aim's been pretty good for Zeta Division, though. To be honest with you,
They
right?
can
When we're
consist-
talking
It's
about
been
how
pretty good, but
yeah.
they don't have that one person who can pop off again. Look at Ye on Breeze, for example.
Yeah.
That's like another level, you know? And
Yeah.
they don't have that. Like, the issue with the team play is it's really good on maps where team play is favored, but it's so bad when you just need someone to go in, kill everyone, basically. And just
So toe
him.
to toe, nobody in Zeta Division could maybe outduel Ye is what you're trying to get to potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's a
Really? Oh,
controversial
okay.
statement, is it?
All right. No, I mean, that's fair
I think-
enough.
I think
I
he's
mean,
more
OpTic's
consistent
annoying because they
overall.
just fucking rely on him to
Yeah.
get so much done.
Yeah.
Isn't that a thing? You just need someone who can pop off. Basically, that's what we're getting right now. For Loud, it's pretty much all of them, and
Yeah.
and you have Sassy's backup plan. You have Ye there for OpTic. You have Jin go kill, Forsaken go kill by Master Benkai. Secret plans, Paper Rex. Don't spoil anyone, guys. And compared to Zeta Division, they do have a rock that is last, but you don't really have him super pop off, right? There have been those
No.
moments for Tem, have been those moments for Depth. And I think for Zeta Division, there needs to be even more of a clear-cut star right now, not just like, oh, this guy isn't doing shit when everyone else is doing shit. And I think that's the biggest asterisk right now about Zeta Division. What if we get that really problematic performance from them? Like you guys mentioned, that series against Team Liquid, what we saw versus DRX, right? Those can still happen to Zeta Division. And the fact of the matter is that it isn't happening right now is keeping
Right.
them more and more afloat, is keeping them in that contention. But when you go against someone like Paper Rex, when you have 2 superstars waiting at the wings, you have a backline that is so potent, especially in that post-match scenario. And just to call out real quick the ticker, Paper Rex is from 3 different countries: Indonesia for Forsaken and Mind Freak, Singapore for
And then
there
Myanmar,
you go,
right?
and Dubai. Yeah, Malaysia, Dubai. So it's
Oh,
it's
Malaysia, sorry.
absolute sea supremacy. And the thing, and Zeta, they're gonna have to deal with every single one of the guys also still possible to pop off. And if they get overrun, then that's gonna be a big problem. Talking about the full map pool, Haven has to be banned because you compare it to Breeze, you compare it to Ascent. Zeta still has a few more tricks under their sleeves. They've been trying out different compositions. But
Okay.
Haven, it's the same thing over and over and over again. And they've shat the bed in the grand finals against Crazy Raccoon. And they did even worse, especially here in Masters. That needs to be not played for.
I mean, they can
Zeta
they can
Division.
ban it, right? They could definitely
Yeah.
just ban it, and
Yeah.
then we could just go on with
Yeah.
our lives. I always
I
want
mean,
to say
this-
that Paper Rex haven't, because Paper Rex didn't play in groups, right? We don't have much data on them at all. We only have seen them on Ascent, Split, Bind, and Haven, right? So no Icebox, no Breeze, no Fracture. So it's a little bit. I mean, we can go back a little bit further, I guess. If we need to get an eye of this. So we made a case against Zeta Division, right? That's maybe easier to do. Can we make a case for Zeta Division now, in terms of like what their strengths are and what their sort of keys to victory are in this matchup, right? Against a team like you guys know Paper Rex, right? You maybe understand some of their weaknesses as well. If Zeta Division are going to win it and going to go through, where does it start, and what do they need to play around?
There's one criteria they need to fit.
I
here.
think, like, from,
Yeah.
I mean, we've matched up against Paper Rex many times on Over, and Icebox is not a map you're going to want to play them in, but Zeta Division, I think they can kind of throw kind of a wrench in that spike, if you're getting my drift. There's also the effect of, I guess, Ascent kind of being a very possible pick for them. You look at Split, and that's definitely not no-go. I do think Japanese team whole kind of have a very I want to say almost outdated kind of view on Split. As we talked about, they still play the Sky, which isn't bad. They still play the Astra, which isn't bad. The way that they use it has been something that has always been questionable to me. I mean, the last time we did see Sova on Split, it was from a Japanese team, by the way, on a LAN. So, as a whole, I do think that there aren't too many, and this was coming to your point a while ago, Uber, like, they don't have a wide enough I guess, map pool that they can really use to utilize against Paper Rex themselves. And so they're going to have to play Paper Rex basically on their own home turf. And there aren't too many win conditions in that, but I do think Ascent is one of them. It's one of the maps that, honestly, Paper Rex, in my opinion, have looked mortal in.
Yeah, dude, my X Factor map is honestly Fracture. And we haven't seen it yet from Paper Rex, but these guys run Neon on it, where especially Forsaken is there to be the biggest distraction of them all, allows Jing to slip on in and they fortify their whole setup. But from what I've seen from Zeta Division, they love to run that Astra, they love to run that Breach and Chamber alongside it, and it's going to be very disruptive, especially if Paper X is all within those sites. And if you know how to clear out the site in Fracture, it's very simple, really, especially if they're just there. You're relying on Jing for Paper Rex to really pop off, get the damage done if Forsaken gets picked off very early on, which happens a lot. Forsaken gets a negative KD on Fracture a few times, actually, back in the APAC scene, because he's making that space. He's being that martyr, basically, for Paper Rex. And I really feel like if Zeta wants to try and prove something, that might be the map to do so, because we did see Paper Rex struggling to make that Yoru work the first day around in the international stage. And that might be the same thing on Fracture. But I just want to put this out there. Haven, if that goes through, Zeta is done. No chance.
Do you think? Wait, do you actually think so? Like, I just don't agree with this. Like, I fucking hate Paper X's comp on this map. The Jet Rays is not something you play. I mean, Jet Reyna is not something you play on Haven in 2022. Like, I have no idea how they're getting this much success.
Danny, let me interject here real quick. For us, even in APAC, whenever we saw that, we always thought Paper X was saving strat. And in all honesty, they did. Because after a while,
they're not playing that comp anymore.
You think they're saving strat in lower bracket of Masters?
Jet and Sage. They played Jet and Sage for Paper Rex there instead of Jet and Reyna. But then since they faced off against DRX, it was like, okay, fuck, this is the perfect way to fuck with them, to bring out the Jing Reyna pop-off, and they just stuck with it. But that's the thing. He still can't deal with Paper Rex right now, seeing what like Nevera did for Team Liquid. There is just no way.
I mean,
that series against Xerxia though, in the VCT APAC finals, right? They played. I think they played Fracture, but they also played Haven, and they didn't play this stupid comp. They actually played Raze.
Raze
on that comp,
and Sage.
Right?
Yeah.
So they maybe the Reyna is not like a sort of a key component of their composition on that particular.
Well,
map.
fuck, it has to be. They used it at Masters.
Also,
if not, they would have kept the Raze and the Sage during Masters.
Totally
they fucking pooed on Xerxia on Fracture as well in that series.
If there's one thing you guys should know about Paper Rex is that the only game style, the only game plan they have is to be as indomitable as they can, as suffocating as they can. And that is where Reyna is really good. I honestly really disagree. Anybody who says Reyna is a bad pick, Reyna is simple, easy to use. All you have to do is not be bad. And Jing, he is not bad.
Don't be bad.
No, don't be. Hit your shots. Aim for the head. Get the kill. There you go. Dude, but this is it.
Kind of makes sense.
It's such a big deal that they got away with the Reyna against DRX, because it's basically the antithesis of what DRX does, and then against NA's like Bright Boys, the guard, the fact that they could just outstyle the guard with the Reyna just says, hey, APAC's better.
Yeah. I mean, so again,
for now,
right? It doesn't necessarily reflect nearly as badly on Paper X as the people they fucking beat with the Reyna in their competition.
That's it. That's the other thing. I
mean, wait. The guard one also playing Sova on Haven, which is also just like inting, I feel. So like this was just like two of the most random comps I've seen on Haven.
Yeah, using the Sky but no, like the Sky Breach, right?
Wait, you guys are still under the impression, Tanny, you're still under the impression that you need a Sova on this map? I think this map could be very well played without a Sova on Haven.
It, right?
I mean,
neither
if you don't have the
used
Sova, I think you need the Sage. If you don't have both, you can't just play with flashes and hope to just blind them.
Tanny just answered the question why.
Dead. Like,
No,
Oh, I
Danny,
disagree
answer
as
the
well.
question why, real quick. Why Zeta cannot play against FakerX on Haven? Because Zeta also plays Sky Breach.
Yeah, okay, then as
There
well.
you go. There you go. So
No, man.
Oh, what are these comps?
I like
These are the top
the
four
double
of
slash
us.
triple flash.
Yeah, this is meta now.
I
guess.
still like the double slash triple flash comp on Haven, where you don't necessarily need a Silva in there, just because of what you have is you're meant to overload your retakes and your executions. I mean, we've seen it already from Cloud9 when they started bringing that out into the scene. I think DRX was another one they're playing without a Silva on this very map too, like just in Korea itself. There's a lot of these rosters that are not running a Silva. Yeah, exactly. So I think it still works very well. I mean, even look at Team Liquid. They got away from also not using it, but they're also not in there. But you still find good successes from teams that are not running a Sova on a comp like on a map like Haven rather. I think it's going to be just fine. And just to get back about the map pool and everything too, I think even though Zeta Division probably doesn't have the best split, they've showed improvements on split. And I think this is where like the map pool can get kind of deep versus PRX, where when PRX played against Xerxia Fracture during the APAC, it was like one of those series where it didn't really matter because they already both qualified, and then they didn't know that first place was like important, like that you make it out of group, and then they pull out a Neon. But then the Neon for me it was a lot of like inting shit from Forsaken. But I think that's just PRX in general. It's just a lot of inting shit that works.
Split, mate. It is inting. You're trying to get ahead of the fucking utility. This is one thing we haven't talked about, by the way. Sideshow made this tweet, right? And he basically was like, this is the tournament for thrifties. There's like a 20% thrifty success rate. And some teams have like more than 50% success rate on their thrifty rounds. I think Liquid was one of them.
Yes.
This feels like the fucking Stinger meta in ways, because controllers are now been weakened, like your Viper, like your Astra, and you have Neon in the mix, and people are just fucking running at each other. And that's why look at this. This is absolutely unreal. To be fair,
it's a lot of fucking share shots in that shit.
EMEA, to be honest, if you're winning this many thrifty rounds and still losing your games, there's something seriously
fucking
wrong.
Disastrous.
Yeah.
Look at that, Liquid Fnatic and G2.
It's so
this
bad.
Is like a symptom of honestly where
the top 5 teams.
Yeah. Sorry, what was
I think it's a symptom of where Valorant is currently moving right now. You see it versus Paper Rex. Basically, it's pretty much close the gap. Close the gap. That's really where things have been going towards, I think, in the past meta. Especially, you got so much movement abilities now. You have so much gap closing tools now that are being used so effectively. Where would you see against a full 5v5 gun round, where we saw when Paper Rex, just their last game, right? When they were playing on Split, where they pretty much brought the fight to B main, and they were on the defensive side. They fought in front of B main, close that gap, and being able to take that map, I guess, immediately and just suffocatingly is one of the biggest reasons why I guess APAC has been performing, because when before it wasn't necessarily something that you could do because of how powerful controllers were at keeping you at bay. Now, initiating tools are the most important utility in the game, and that's where APAC really shines.
So while we've gone back and forth a bit on Zeta here, for a bit of flavor, let's sprinkle in Laz's sort of interview after they managed to beat DRX, and then I want to come back to this topic sort of one more time before we wrap it up. So this is Laz, pretty emotional after a huge victory against a team they're really familiar with. So enjoy.
そしてですね、DRX は本当に長い間昔からアジアのシーンを一番に引っ張ってきたチームで、自分たちももうとんでもない量のなんていうんだろう、練習というか自分たちのためになるようなその練習を通して自分たちが成長するきっかけを作ってくれた、もう僕たちにとって本当に師匠のようなチームだったので、こうしてこの大きな舞台で彼らに少し近づくことができてすごく嬉しいと思います。そしてDRX に一番大きな感謝を送りたいです。
DRX has been we have been scrimming with DRX for a long time in Asia, and we have learned a lot from them, and we wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for DRX, and we have so much respect, and we almost feel like they're a father to us, and so we want to say big thank you to DRX.
Right.
Sportsmanship.
Yeah.
You don't hear that often.
you can hear, obviously, first of all, he's saying that obviously he's really happy and there's a bit of emotion there. They're the main, obviously, scrim partner, almost seems to be indicated by that interview. So on that note, we've looked at the good, the bad, the ugly of Zeta Division. The question remains from all of you. We'll start with Vans. How far does this team go? Where do they go all the way? What team gets the better of them? Vans, what do you think?
I think now I might have to start hopping on the Zeta Division train. I think they will be able to get this win against Paper X. Even though I had Paper X going pretty deep in this tournament, I feel this is deep enough where like Zeta Division has the best dark horse story right now, but it probably ends there.
Is that
I think
based
Loud
in...
and OpTic is still pretty good.
Okay. Is that based on like map pool, or is it just the feeling you have about this team? Like when a team's on a Cinderella run, they, there's always a bit of confidence there that they can just make the miracle happen.
I think they have a way to probably start shutting down like the over aggressiveness of Jing and of Forsaken going into the series. I think there's also a potential where you get rid of the gimmickies portion or the gimmick portions of the series. You get rid of Bind in your rotation out there. I think they have a chance to potentially improve into Haven if PRX is going to play over aggressive on Haven. I think it still matches pretty well into how Zeta Division have been adapting to every team that they face so far.
Tanny?
Honestly, this match is looking very 50-50 for me, but
yeah,
like as you said, it comes down to map pool for a lot of it. Like if they end up playing Bind and Forsaken's feeling it, then there isn't much they can do at that point.
It's over, yeah.
Yeah. But if they do make it through this match, I think they have a pretty good shot at beating like either of these two teams, because both Loud and OpTic more than Loud, definitely lean into the Jaeger kill like category of that, and I think they're very good at shutting that down. Like they play way more as a team, so for the exact reason to not give one person like all the value on the enemy team.
Yeah.
So
and the spread
I
is
can
very
see them...
close of kills, right? As you noted in chat.
Exactly. And yeah, like Ye has one bad map, and yeah, that series is like also over for OpTic, and
yep.
Although in a best of 5 for that one, because it would be the lower final, it does make it harder for sure.
Yeah, it would be a BO5, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, you two knuckleheads. What do you guys think? Obviously, they're going up against Paper Rex in this next game. So, what are the odds? I think you guys are. I think I kind of know you guys are definitely favoring Paper Rex, and in a more even in an academic sense. So I can respect that. But what do you think about Zeta's run? Does it end here?
If Zeta wins against Paper Rex, it completely destroys the Asian ecosystem. Not gonna lie, we're gonna be seeing Japan on top for the very first time, and that will really change the way how the rest of the year is gonna be moving forward. Perhaps like how people fare, what kind of style of play is gonna be even more important, because usually it's also a business of litmus test of what really works best for APAC. Which style is the strongest? Which style can you start emulating to evolve into something else? But really, Paper Rex, this is a squad that's gonna be fucking with Zeta Division as much as possible in terms of map pool, in terms of the heat checks, in terms of how far they're gonna push. And this is where Zeta Division is gonna be tested in that kind of conceit. If they beat Paper Rex, they will prove that they can handle whatever anyone else can throw at them, that we're not gonna be seeing those huge slumps anymore. But that's the nagging factor here for Zeta Division, that can happen, that it can be like a 13-2, 13-3 scoreline, more so than anyone else. So really, if Zeta Division wins against Paper Rex, they're gonna go all the way for me. But most likely for me, it's Paper Rex taking this one.
Yeah, I have to agree with Dax, obviously. Here, like, I am going to go to the Paper Rex's side. I do think Zeta do have a chance. I will say, though, that, there's other teams still here in the top 4, like OpTic, that are better than Paper Rex. But I do think at the same time, Zeta would probably fare better over versus OpTic if they ever, went for a rematch or something. We're kind of playing against Paper Rex here, and simply for the fact that Zeta's biggest strengths are once again where they can make those adjustments, but they don't always necessarily come mid-round, mid-game. They come after, when they get to rematch them back once again. And for a team like OpTic, for a team like maybe Loud, you kind of expect what they're going to come to. You can get some reads. You don't get that same benefit when you're playing against Paper Rex, because sometimes they don't even know like what they're doing is right, but they still do it and it still works out anyway. So how do you expect the most unexpected team that you can have here playing, at least in terms of play style? Now, Zeta, they are very, very proficient as playing as a team. They're very similar, almost like a DRX with a bit more wild card factor in how they play, but I still do think, even though they are more familiar with playing against SEA teams, PaperX just have something very different right now that, in terms of if you're going for a heat check, they do live by the sword, yes, and Zeta are very, very proficient at delivering that sword to the enemy, and so PaperX, they can also die by their own sword. I do agree, but I don't think it's going to happen in this match.
I see. So so PaperX doesn't get killed by Zeta; they get killed by themselves. If that is even going to happen, I like that. All right, so look, I think we've set the stage pretty well here. This game is going to be just a huge one for that APAC region in general. I think hopefully the viewership's great, even if the time isn't going to be particularly good. But yeah, you're definitely going to make history in Valorant. Yeah, exactly. Either way, yeah. So wait, what?
They should swap it because Asia give us the first game, so we don't have to stay up till like 4 a.m.
Oh, yeah, totally.
How hard would that be to do? Really? Like, they should do that.
It's midnight for me, 1 a.m. for the boys over at SEA to watch. It's pretty insane. Although, like I said, I think seeing this in this bracket to see Zeta Division PRX in the top 4 is already really huge. Right now, the master stages have always been like Berlin or Iceland. Hopefully, if we get to a point where there's going to be crowds that are going to be able to attend these events, I would love to see an event going into Southeast Asia, not just Korea. I think it should go somewhere in Southeast Asia and also to Japan, so that we could actually really get that fan base out. I think seeing and to follow storylines. Another reason why I want Zeta Division to get this is because I want an FPS Japanese team to do better than, as Blackenblue mentioned before, Nora Rengo, who got like top 4 during the Siege Invitational in Montreal, I think in like 2019. Oh yeah, you mentioned 2019, ENB.
Really?
So that was like probably the highest ranking that we've seen from a Japanese team in a tactical FPS of all time.
Yeah.
So I think if we were able to see this in Valorant, it'd be fucking sick for the scene in itself, for the international stage for Valorant.
Because it wasn't since like 2018, I want to say, where we had the Japanese team playing the Overwatch World Cup, which was that generated a lot of hype as well.
There was 18, 19. That Cyclops Athletes Gaming squad that was really strong in Overwatch, and they've been almost always there. They only lost to Talon, if I remember correctly, which was basically the raid boss of Pacific Overwatch. So Japan, they just need to take that extra step, and you really can be one of the great.
Absolutely. Well, guys, great to have you on. Obviously, great to have you back, Daks, and Blackenblue. Thanks for joining us. Great to pick your brains a little bit, and get the SEA take on what we've been seeing here, because right now I'm telling you, stonks for SEA analysts are going up because there's a lot of your expertise definitely required right now in these matches. Unlucky if you're an A&E, but that's the way it goes.
I mean, and it's still not bad. And it's still not bad so far. Come on.
Look, I don't know, man.
You.
I don't know how you could I think OpTic could go and win the whole thing, and I still struggle to be convinced. That team just makes me uneasy right now. Do you know what I mean?
I don't, because I had them winning the whole thing, so we're good. We're all good.
Yeah, I just can't. We'll talk about that a little bit later with FrosT, but thanks, guys, for coming on. We're going to go to a break. To take us there, obviously, you guys have been enjoying some Mickey Mouse over in North America. Is the only region that is having those at the moment. You'll recognize the name Andersin. Nerd Street Gamer Summer Championship qualifiers are on at the moment, and in the Open, it was near airport that went all the way. So we're going to hear a little bit from Andersin. Obviously, remember, was it Cookie Koalas, right? Honkadonkaloo's? Yeah. Anyway,
Slimer Boogerman, I think, as well, was there?
Yeah, exactly. Guy's been around the scene for a while. So we'll see you on the other side of the break. We're going to talk about a bit more Masters. Shocker. If you've been enjoying Valoranting, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you get every episode hot off the presses.
So my name is Andy Collins, but in the Valorant gamer tag, my alias is Andersin. I am a former professional player for Dark Zero Esports, and I have had a very, very good past couple of months with my free agent team, Nearest Airport. So my development as a player from starting like on Pretty Boys, I was a lot more selfish. My comms weren't as clean as they are now. My proactive thinking wasn't there, because now Now when I play Valorant, I'm looking for, okay, well, what are they throwing? What characters are where? What info are they throwing out early? What do their ultimates look like? Like, you're running these calculations of every possible scenario. But in the beginning, it was like, oh, Omen's here, or this person's here. They threw this, but you're not really proactively thinking about how you could use those information to help you win future rounds. You're like really in and focused on the first, like the round that you are currently in. So I think when I talk about like my experience as a player, there's certain things that I think I did correct, but there's a lot of things that I think I did wrong. And it's my ability to grow as a player is being able to evaluate all the things I did right and make those better, and make all the things that I did wrong, like get rid of all the like bad habits, the bad communication, realizing that there's so much that I need to learn, and there's so much that I'm still learning. And I think that's probably the biggest difference from me back then and me now is I probably thought I knew more back then than I do, and now I realize that I know less. I know so much less. That was actually it was mostly Profi's project. Profi and Bankroth were building a team, and then Profi just hit up Expert since they used a Pug over a year ago. So it was primarily those three. And then when I got cut from DZ, I had two options. I had probably the worst statistics that I've ever had in the past 6 months of like my personal career. And I could sit there and I could go, I could wait for an opportunity to come to me, which it probably wouldn't due to the fact that I wasn't a wannable player. Or I could just accept the fact that I'm going to have to reprove myself. So when I joined Nearest Airport, I kind of explained what I would want the culture to look like. And I've been put in this leadership position where, for my team specifically now with Nearest Airport, I am the guy who keeps everybody in check. I'm the one who makes sure that, are we focusing on the right goals? Are we keeping our tonality correct when talking to each other? Are we going to keep, are we playing at the level that we should be playing and keeping each other accountable, but in a way where everyone's going to be receptive of said criticism if it's given? Because everybody accepts things differently. And that's kind of the leadership position that I have taken now. And with Nearest Airport, it's the first time where I have taken the full authority to create that environment and the culture that cultivates winning. This is a PSA for any org that is currently looking or who's been on the sidelines, who wants a team that is hungry to win, wants a team that is capable of winning, and wants a team that understands the correct culture that is needed in a environment of just a team-based environment. We are that team, and it's time to pull the strings. I think there's a lot of different orgs that have been waiting and have been looking, and we're only going to keep going further and further. And I truly believe that, because what other team has gone from unrated to 17th in a month and a half? There hasn't been.
Welcome back, everybody, to Valoranting. Good to hear from Andersin there as well. I forgot, obviously, he's on Dark Zero for a spell as well, so he's really been around quite a lot. Speaking of people who've quite been around in the scene, great to welcome onto the show for the first time, Hector, FrosT, Rosario, of course, previously with Flipside Tactics and 100 Thieves as their coach, and obviously known for his work with Stats Helix. FrosT, good to have you on the show finally, man. How you been?
Thank you. I appreciate the introduction.
Not a problem at all. Listen, I mean, a lot of people wondering if they follow you on Twitter. You've definitely been sharing a lot of your thoughts about the game, about the matches we've seen so far over in Iceland. You were also, one of the people that sort of spotted Zeta Division, I would sort of say last year, and you sort of tweeted that like it's kind of crazy that people are still shocked by this sort of team, right? Yeah. We already talked about Zeta a fair bit in the last segment, but I do want to get your take on this team and sort of where they're at and maybe how far they can go, and any thoughts you sort of have about this roster. Some people, admittedly are still catching up to realizing just how much potential this squad has.
Yeah, I think what was really interesting to me was, and I say this with full confidence, I thought their retakes in Berlin were probably better than almost every team there.
Right.
And we struggled with that too. So it was like super interesting. So I remember talking to Nitro, and Stacks was the first one that said, yeah, this seems legit and for real. And even though I don't think the performance I guess, indicated that they were really solid. I think if you looked at their play, you could see that, like, even when they were down on Ascent, I think it was like, I don't know, 11-5 or something. They brought it all the way back. It was just really interesting for me back then to see, because none of us had any expectations of Japan. I'll be completely transparent. I thought it was a free win. I actually would have, if you talked to me before we went to Berlin, I promise you I would have said that Havan Liberty is probably going to be better.
Right.
By the time I left Berlin, I was like, oh, that team is sick. And I thought Laz was incredible. As a matter of fact, I mean, kind of funny story, but like, you know, Laz was an import that in my head, I was like, man, like if we had an academy team, I think Laz would be really serious. I think he'd be really good. You remember Sonic from South Africa? This was like CSGO, like 2015, like that. That's what I saw then. I was like, oh, so to see the maturation and sort of everything, you know, happen the way that it did, to me was pretty impressive. But it's also why I was sort of frustrated, because I told Vansilly this like off air, whatever, but I like quickly repeat it now. I think sometimes by not recognizing things early, we can almost alter players' careers, because we don't realize like what happens if they go to resign. Their team might go, well, you know, you just proved that you're worth X. Why don't we delay? Whereas in my eyes, I'm like, oh, no. In Berlin, they proved that they were actually really good. They didn't have the string of wins, I guess, that came with it, but they were also playing, obviously, some of the best teams. This is now, I think, the culmination of all that hard work. So now it's like, okay, now we're 2 for 2 in international competition. So the assumption that like this is a fairy tale run to me is not, I won't say offensive, but I think it's disingenuous, because no, I think they proved that to at least me and Nitro and Stacks, you know, in Berlin. So I wasn't surprised by them at all, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like there's this idea that like a narrative surrounding a team can be inflated or like conflated sometimes based on the way we talk about them, or people's inability to spot them earlier on, and that can actually impact their sadly, I mean, you know, the narrative from I would say that people aren't experts on them can still affect their career prospects. So
and one more thing on it, same with Crew, right? So we were practice partners with Crew around the like May-ish, June, July. We knew Crew were coming.
Yeah.
Crew used to dominate us on bind. So much so, we turned it into a perma-ban, because we were like, bro, if we can't beat these guys, it is not going to work. Let's just move on. Zeta almost came back on them on bind.
Yeah.
That's like, for perspective, this is Japan. This is what I mean by like, we were grossly underestimating that team, and then by the end we were like, well, they gave Crew a hard time. I mean, Crew barely beat them 2-1. I mean, sure, they pulled away at the end on the third map, but like it was competitive. And that's like I think the start of everything for me with Zeta. And Crew, I think, has such a similar story arc, because Crew, for all of us, surprised the shit out of us Masters 1-ish, and then by Masters 2 everybody was like, oh, Crew, and I feel like this is sort of Zeta's, you know, Berlin now, right?
I think
this is basically what it is.
This is true of like so many things. I also think it's true of like, it's true of players, it's true of teams, it's true of casters. You could be sick for like a year, until people start fucking noticing that you're sick. You've already been sick. And so when you're in that position, you're like, fuck you, man. I've been doing this same shit for like a year. Now you just cut me on because fucking Sideshow told you, like, fuck off, you know? So
I mean, it's true. It's weird how the narrative is shaped, and then it's crazy how it lingers. And I think, you know, you guys had Andersin on the thing here, and he's another one that was like, his omen was godlike. Right? But like never got the credit because he's playing for like, you know, Dark Zero and some orgs that didn't have like, I think.
Or it was like DHBK, right? And people were just obsessed about them playing judges. Remember, that was like the whole narrative about his team. And they like leaned into it a little bit because that was the fucking buzz phrase that they had. But like you had insane players on this team, you know, like Screwface and Harmon, like all these fucking guys that were just super sick. So.
Funny story about judges. This is respect I'll give Valen. So I prayed to God that we would use judges more, and I just couldn't do it because I had OGs that were just good, and they were just like, bro, I don't need judges.
Yeah, sure.
You know, Valen was the first guy I saw before Vanity, before any of this stuff. Valen, was the first one I saw literally using these like pocket guns in specific spots. Just basically, he has full money, and he's just like, nah, I'm just gonna sit here and do the. Valen was the one, so like I have to give him props for that because this is way before everybody else figured that out.
So I mean, we normally in this segment we'd go over some matches and stuff. We'll get there as well because I do want to get your take on the NA slant. I don't think it's fair to to put you in that box because I think you're one of the few people that can really look at each region holistically. We will just take a focus.
And I'm still undefeated technically on land against EU.
Right.
So just want to point this out.
I want to quickly get your thoughts though. Obviously, having spent a lot of time with 100 Thieves, right, and that roster, which is a really fascinating one because it features a lot of big personalities, a lot of players with a lot of history, and you had a lot of history, of course, even in Counter-Strike prior to this. What are your thoughts on the direction? You don't have to. I'm not asking for any juice or any inside information, but I want to know what your thoughts on the direction is now. Like, how do you sort of evaluate the tack that 100 Thieves are taking? In the wake of your tenure there and that team now obviously being broken down and sort of being changed.
Okay, so you want the truth serum. I have to be very careful because DDK and Bardolph, I love. I think I have so much respect for DDK. It's not even funny. I haven't talked to him in many years, but he even used to rock F3 jerseys on broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
So I will just say that I think you saw some of what the future might look like in CSGO because Cloud9 attempted this.
Yes.
What I will say, though, is I think Sean Gare is deciding to coach them. It's probably going to be really good. Player stuff and all that. I told Vansily we'll probably have another show to discuss sort of thoughts, what happened or whatever.
Sure.
I'll say that I think, and I can say this pretty confidently, that I would be very surprised if they have anywhere near the success, at least this year. I know Asuna was talking about, hey, man, long-term future, I think this roster could be really good. And, sure. I mean, if that is the way that they want to go now, I will say it's very interesting that they didn't have this energy and they definitely didn't create this environment when they had us. It was win now. I mean, I will say this to defend those players. There were about 2 different times where they were having internal meetings about whether or not they're going to get dropped. And I feel I think that's a very interesting juxtaposition. That's probably what I'll say for now.
Yeah,
we'll eventually get more in depth and I'll answer a hell of a lot more questions with honesty and receipts to prove it probably later. But I am very curious to see how the next 2 years shape up with this roster. Trust.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that's such a great sort of teaser. If we obviously we'll take a chance to sit down with you and explore that a little bit more.
Sorry, just to add real quickly to that too, and we get to actually watch them play tomorrow. So tomorrow they're playing the next tournament. So there's going to be a lot of eyes watching 100 Thieves tomorrow.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Oh, I'm sure they're going to love it too. I mean, it's I like that more teams are playing in all of these smaller cups. Mm-hmm. I have to be honest, because I try to tell Apex that TSM should have been doing this for a long time, but I think the older CS guys had a problem with playing in these minor cups, and a lot of it was I think they said it was tactics, even though some of them didn't really have tactics. You can tell when you just watch. Yeah. So I will just say that I love the fact that more teams are playing here, and I feel like if not for anything more, then experimentation is going to be really useful here. Because scrims are scrims, and in NA, you guys have heard, I don't need to say it, scrims in NA sometimes can be, you don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah. Which is even in EMEA, they don't even have these tournaments, so they'll fucking take that in a heartbeat if they had the opportunity.
Right. Well,
we played everything on previous teams, whatever was available before.
Yeah, I think that's without getting too much into it. I think this is an issue. I think with the way that Riot, I think decompartmentalizes everything because EU has their own say. I had issues with this even in Berlin because some of the rule sets are different between different regions.
Oh yeah,
but technically, it's not supposed to be.
Even the bug list is different for each region.
Yes. Oh, trust me.
That's the worst one.
Ask anyone in Berlin. I literally respect to Victoria, respect to Alex Francois. They're the homies. But Oh man, I was going in one day at they had like this coaches manager stuff, and I was telling them this is like Crossfire. Most people don't even understand that, like, even in Crossfire. So back at F3, we had basically the best foreign Crossfire team. Like, we had the only team ever to compete as foreigners in the CFPL. Crossfire was like that. Crossfire had like EU had a different game, NA had a different game, and China had a different game. And then, like, when you go to compete the World Championships, you play the Chinese version, and the Chinese version is like basically you could wall bang everything. And then EU, you couldn't wall bang anything. So like, imagine the difference of a game, and it's like this is like
material science and standards between the two countries. You know what I mean?
Right, but this is like 2014, 15, 16 problems. We're in 2022, and I'm having to argue why is it that, which led to me later having a problem with Nerd Street. Why is it that Nerd Street says this is banned, but I have a rules list that doesn't include this, and I have an EU game that was just played today and says this is banned? So how are we not allowed to use it, and then another NA team uses it and they get a pass?
This is, but the Riot, so Riot EU and NA, they're not just like compartmentalized from each other. There's a fucking vitriol between those offices, and they can fucking compete. It's mental. Absolutely.
I know.
All right. We need to talk about some fucking games.
Right.
We got
2 hours.
We'll talk about this some other time. Don't worry. Trust. We'll get there.
So let's start with OpTic, because I feel like this is a team. Credit to them because they don't lose in the same way against the same team twice at the very least. When we've seen them, perform poorly, and there's been times where FNS has gone on record even after they've won, and he's been like, "We're not happy with this." That's great. They looked pretty shaky against Xerxia early on. Let's talk about their second matchup against that team, right? Where we sort of get to see OpTic stabilize a little bit more. I feel like it's safe to say they play different maps, right? So the map pool is very different in that particular series. But let's talk high level about OpTic and sort of their style right now, because they've been criticized for being very individual play oriented. For a team that has an IGL like FNS, who definitely you would think would try and approach or tends to approach the game in a more cerebral manner, and that IGL, that sort of IGL tendency of maybe not, just fragging up a storm definitely seems to be there, which is people can forgive, right, if the IGL is able to create a lot, of action, a lot of traction in a strategic sense here. But I find OpTic a little bit hard to put my finger on right now, and I said to Vans, they make me a little uneasy because I'm not sure what to expect. I don't know what your take is on them, FrosT, especially here when they go up against Xerxia that second time to get out of groups.
Right. So I feel like, man, my history goes back with them a long ways. I'll say this to your point about they're a little shaky. I think that's a byproduct of the way that they play. That's why they look different versus other regions than NA. And NA, especially us, they counted us a lot because it was all individual plays. It was basically yay. Like when we play Sentinels, it was basically 10s. It was like these guys are just so good that like our normal things won't work. So then you try to like craft something and you engineer, a setup. You add a variation to it just specific for this team, and this guy busts you. Like I remember, nobody remembers this, but the reason we didn't make champions was really that comeback we had on Haven a long time ago, where Tens basically stole the game from us with a 4K with the
4K
sheriff
on C.
Right. Nobody realizes, but like had we won that game, we win the series, we are in champions, we don't have to worry about LCQ, right?
Yeah.
And some of these rounds by some of these players, it's not textbook. It wasn't supposed to happen. You even have a design against it. You have a perfect read. You know what's coming, and it doesn't matter. And I feel like that's the issue with Yay. I think why OpTic, to me, I'll say this pretty, confidently. I think they're the favorite because of all these teams. Now they have the most experience, IGL. They have the better player, the better individual. Don't even talk to me about Stacey being or Laz or anybody being better than Ye, at least right now in his current form. I think that's not true. I think Ye is capable of single-handedly winning you a series, turning a game around, just like I felt at the time Hiko was for us, which is interesting that he had such a negative opinion by some pro players, but you can't buy those swing rounds. You can spend all the money you want in the world, and you can't buy those rounds. You got to have players that can do these things. Ye certainly can do this thing. Mm-hmm. I think that what makes them stronger now isn't even what we're talking about. It's the fact that Crashies and Food are actually legitimate players now that can turn a series. Before,
Yeah.
you got this sort of like, if they didn't show up or will they show up, all that stuff. I think that's now gone. I think they've passed that period of maturation. Now they're at the point where they're legitimate. And I think why, to me, they're so strong is the fact that crashes and food are now factors.
Yep.
And that's not something that most teams have to deal with in the past. At least me last year definitely didn't have to deal with that much. Now it's like, I mean, the one round I think everybody should see that is still, it's just crazy to me. Look at food, 11-10 against DRX. This dude is doing neon jiggle peaks that's so fast.
I was gonna say that, yeah.
Oh, yeah, with their speed boost.
Yeah, yeah.
Causing so much havoc. That
Against
is
RB's
confidence.
Yep.
That is confidence. That's like being comfortable in the character. That's knowing you're better. That stuff did not exist before. Now he's like, bro, I can do this in the middle of a game, 11-10 when it matters. Game 3, what's up? And still hit the shots and still create all this. And it's just like, now you got to deal with Yay. Now you got to deal with crashies. Now you got to deal with food. Oh, boy.
That's what I wanted to add, because at this point where you're looking at maybe the shakiness of OpTic, it was that I even think that even sometimes, because in general, what's being talked about on over the news or the TLs is always yay. So it comes to a point where you have teams that are just going to be like, let's try to figure out ways where we could shut down Yay. And I feel like sometimes it works pretty well when, I was watching the split game when they have Stacks playing a KO to really just counteract against Yay's utility when he's playing Chamber. When they're able to shut down Yay, you still have now players like Crashies, players like Victor that are able to do what they were supposed and intended to do. And I think, again, when you look back at Champions and they didn't have that great of a run or whatever, it was also due to the fact that Victor had fucking COVID, right? So now he's with his team. He's able to add that on top of it, too, that he's able to be a nuisance to any type of oppositions that he's coming against as a Neon, because, again, not many teams are practiced yet against a Neon in official matches. So that already is one off factor that OpTic has going for them to an advantage versus other teams. But now also you have not only Crashies being a clutch player, but he's also flexing into different initiators too. He's playing KO on some maps, especially on Split. He's playing his more Sky as well, and he's able to assist the team a lot more than just being the Silva clutch player of Ascent that I remember him being. So I think OpTic overall, that's the reason why I don't necessarily believe in their shakiness, is why I think they're more complete to be able to win an event like Champions. That said,
I think Tanizhq can tell you something too. EU Vansili, EU uses utility to disrupt oppers and opper angles, which is not something NA does. So the reason why the reason they've had so much trouble is because they don't know how to deal with that stuff. You know why we never had trouble with that? Fortunately, because at one period we had Nitro opping, right? As you remember, the whole CNED game and stuff.
Breeze,
because he understands how to get by utility because he had to deal with it for so long in CS.
Sure.
So it's like to beat Yay, you had to do that. Why we struggle with Yay was because they just do 5-man walk-ups with the op, and then like sometimes you peak incorrectly, or you're undisciplined, and you like are somewhere you're not supposed to be at a specific time, and then boom, you get eaten up. And I feel like that's why I think they're always going to struggle again. Like, it's so sad to me that Fnatic wasn't at full strength, and more importantly, FPX. Because to me, FPX is the best team in the world.
Yeah.
And I feel like those teams would have really given them trouble because Ye has improved a lot. He's learned how to deal with the pressure of utility and when people are stealing your angles away and getting you off your comfortable spots, but not certainly to the degree that you need to like beat those teams. And I feel like when you think of all the teams that are currently left, none of those teams actually do the thing that we're discussing very well.
Yeah.
Which means he's going to play NA, basically.
Yeah, I was about to say,
luck.
because when you're looking at how OpTic played too and how Yay or just Envy was shut down by Gambit or M3C now at M3. I think that OpTic still wants to have that revenge to prove that they could play very well against European teams. This
Sure.
Masters right now, they haven't had that chance yet, right?
No.
So whatever they
won't.
wanted to practice, whatever they wanted to hone to be able to beat these teams in Europe, they haven't had that chance yet, which is going to be very fun to watch later on.
And DRX is a team that does this. And
Yeah.
Had it not been for the throw of throws on Icebox, they would have won. Like just think about, like, they went up against a team and look how much trouble it even went, overtime last map.
Yeah.
And that's DRX, who, in my opinion, love Stacks, the homie, RB, the homie, but they are not as good, in my opinion, as both a healthy and, together Fnatic and, more importantly, FPX. FPX will put foot in butt. I'm telling you, it is not going to be fair.
Yeah.
Like, they are at a different level than if you could barely handle DRX. Good luck with that. Good luck with FPX right now.
What about M3C in this equation then? Like, just how much carnage we see from EMEA if these rosters?
Well, I still think they're really good. I think the problem is they rely on Nats too much, and without getting too intricate into it, if you look back at our attack strategy versus them, it was basically they like to cheat off of Nats. Bro, the closest rotation to him was like 9 seconds. So we basically were like, Ethan, here are his spots. Here's where he likes to be. Go look at how Ethan destroyed him. Because, it's not that Gambit aren't world-class or they're not great. What makes Gambit great is what Six said at last Iceland, which was the reason they won was because they have chemistry. That team might be the best team in the world. They're not in the strongest form at the moment, though.
Sure.
Right? That's the disclaimer here. That they legitimately might be the best team in the world. I'm not going to refute that. But the way that their play style is will give more advantages to, like, OpTic, for instance. Like, because Ye's going to get those same peaks and plays that we got, right? Even today, because sure, they've evolved and changed on some things, but you are who you are most of the time. And Gambit doesn't play with utility as well as the two EU teams we mentioned. As a crew did, when they had Calm in NA.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, like, that's an entirely different style, and that's a style that actually we were really good against because we thought tactically about these things a lot. The dry peeking one-on-one stuff, certainly has never been my game because remember, I came from the Blades and Markelov school of Counter-Strike, so that was not the thing. That's more like an NA thing, which is why, like, Nitro could just, like, I don't know, have 8 rounds in a row where he just goes 14-0 to close out a game. That wasn't coaching. That was like,
he's in
Nitro make a play. Right. That's what I'm saying. So it's like, that stuff is where OpTic is going to be really good, right? Gambit is going to, this Gambit is going to struggle against this OpTic because this OpTic has Crashies and Food now that are, that are not going to be, like, afraid of Shados, basically.
Yeah, sure.
Right? Like, so I kind of think it's a little different with the way the Gambit is because they're still probably at the level of the other teams, but the utility usage and the way that they play, I think actually works better for OpTic, but their style is actually strong against Fnatic and FPX, which is, like, weird how styles kind of create this environment.
Sure.
Like how we can never be Sentinels, right? Like, it's just styles.
How do
Unlucky.
So on that note, sometimes we talk high level about styles, and sometimes we're talking about some of the the factors that sort of affect those narratives. How do we eulogize how do we do justice to the Guard here when they get catapulted immediately into the double elimination bracket and only really get 2 best of 3s to play? I don't think I even need to ask whether maybe they might have preferred to start in the group stage and have more game time, but what goes wrong for this team here? They obviously their first match is against OpTic, for fuck's sake, and then obviously Paper X. So not a lot to see from them, but surely we have plenty to say.
Okay, young team. Like, I don't even care because young team. I don't know what anyone else expected. I know what it's like when games slow down. You can't play at your speed on LAN. You can't do any of these things. You have to, like, actually think through problems in a much different way than you would online, which hurt us at LCQ when we go from online 2-0 winners finals to offline LAN setting to online. Online games are different, and the Guard are really, really good online because everyone's comfortable. You know, Trent, you heard he didn't have music or any of that stuff. He's just young. It's just some inexperience. This was it was inevitable, in my opinion.
Of course,
right? That like
Sure.
they would run into this. The things that worked against them were the format that you discussed. In my opinion, we'll talk Riot later,
Sure.
like some other time.
Sure.
I think they needed more games. I think, and I don't know this for certain, but I do know that it has happened to me specifically, where sometimes you overanalyze things a little too much, and sometimes instead of trusting, I think your players, your sets, or some of the things that you have, you try to anti-strat a little too much. And
Right.
what I did notice was the Guard didn't really change most of their own stuff. What changed, to me at least, were some protocols or reactions to things that, rather than do it a certain way, like everybody knows the NVB on Haven, that's like the most famous. You stop them A, they're immediately going to pivot B, like every time. And it doesn't matter, this is what's going to happen, right? Those things changed, at least to me. And without being in, the locker room or being able to talk to them or like, no, I don't actually know why. I don't know what changed. But it seemed like on one end, they're really confident about the things that they have. And they're just like, we mastered what we do. We're better than you. On the other, you can tell some other things changed.
Yeah.
And that's sort of disconnection I don't get, but they're young. And like, I personally don't think that this is an indictment of the Guard. I think it's just a natural byproduct. We talked crew struggled, they looked okay in Iceland, but they didn't perform that well. They got better, as the year went on. I feel like the Guard can absolutely do the same. I think we just overreact a lot because, everybody needs to win now.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying too. They'll probably get like top 4, top 3 by the end of the top 4. I think by the end of the year is already going to be very satisfactory as a Guard fan, as myself, seeing the potential that the Guard has, seeing how good they are right now. To lose out in Masters, I think was normal to me. To get top 4 by the end of the year, I think it's very, very, very attainable for this team. But it actually brings me to that question too, to both of you guys, since you're both coaches as well. And I'll start with you, Tanny. We could go with Hector after. But Hector, you just mentioned that it would be nice if they had to run through the group stages or whatnot to get that experience or whatever. But I've mentioned this in an article, is that it's still the same that's up at stake if you're actually playing within group stages or at the playout stage. Because in the group stages, it's still a GSL format. It's still double elimination. You're still in BO3s. So if you lose your 2 matches in group stages, you're still out of the tournament. So it doesn't really matter for me if you start it into groups or you start into playoffs. It's still going to be high stake matches whenever you're going within that setting. And if you're looking, okay, if OpTic actually won NA and the Guard is going into the group stages, they're playing Xerxia, they're playing Liquid, and they're playing Crew. Would they be better against
all of who are weaker
Xerxia?
than Paper Rex?
Yeah. This is the thing.
right?
Like, I think it's the same stakes, but your opponents are way weaker. So, like, of course, that's going to give you way more confidence going into those games. And if you win them pretty decisively, you're going to have so much confidence going into the playoffs, where I think we would have seen a different result, like against OpTic especially, because they were about to win on Fracture, and then all of a sudden they just lose all of the momentum because of a couple rounds, and they have no idea how to call that back. And if they went through the group stage, maybe they go through that that exact scenario before, and they probably don't lose in the same way they did. Like, they had a huge lead, and then I don't know what happened, but it reeks of inexperience to me.
Yeah. Oh, it is definitely an experience.
Yeah.
For sure. But I think, again, if they've lost in that scenario, but they had the extra day to prep into the next game, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think you'll have the same type of turnaround. But correct me if I'm wrong to think that way. Where I find that they probably potentially could have gone through the same type of challenges if they were to play in the group stages first here, Hector.
Yeah, I think that format works. Like, that would have helped us. like the guys I had. I think Kenny's right though. I think, especially when you're a young team. Okay, here's an example, right? Everyone thinks Trent's like probably the best player in NA or whatever. Blah 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 blah. Okay. But like, what's the expectation here? That he's Nitro or he's Hiko and he has all this lane experience that like when something bad happens, like everybody knows he doesn't really drone on defense, right? That's not how they use it. Okay. So like if he's getting punished for this, when is he going to get his reps? So when is MCE going to be able to then go, okay, man, it looks like people know that we don't get info early enough on rounds and they do X, Y, and Z. Maybe they would have saw some sort of hole in the game plan or some sort of strategy change, or maybe they would have needed an adjustment because, people have reviewed us. They've anti-stratted us, MCE. Okay, now that we know that they've done it to this degree, we showed some holes. Maybe we lost more rounds on let's say they played in the group stage against a weaker team on Fracture. Maybe the reasons why they went down and couldn't, take the game back were a byproduct of they didn't know what adjustments to make, and MCE only has one timeout. And maybe he just didn't know what to do or what to call, or maybe he did make the right call, but like a play, you know what I'm saying? It's like you want more games because you want more data on whether or not your things work, and you make these micro adjustments. The deeper tournaments go, you should really be just like making changes that might make a team hesitate a little more or might look different, or like just things that give you a slight tactical advantage. But at the end of the day, you are what you are at that point, right? I feel like they know what they are, but they played on an online format. You still want to know what are the differences on LAN. So a good example for me is in Berlin, a lot of players didn't have sound. I'm sure it's gotten better now, right? So like we needed, against Havan especially, we needed to know, we can't hear their walk-ups. We literally changed the way we used our Sova darts.
Yeah.
After that series, like, well, if we're not gonna be able to hear, we need info early, which means we're not gonna have this for retake, which means so many things.
Use the ropes, go kill.
That too. But so many things changed, and it was a very tournament when we got to play on LAN that led us to think, oh my, if we can't hear like Hiko was at first like, dude, it's like too hard to play. Like I can't hear anything. What is this? And we just had to figure out an adjustment. He was smart enough to think of one, and then we started using it, and then it worked or whatever. But like the guard didn't have that. Instead, it was you're granted playoffs for something you did before, which is really weird in retrospect because I don't know if you guys know this, but we lost our first place after we beat Gambit and we made it out of groups in Berlin. We lost first pick from a coin toss.
Yep.
We didn't do anything to lose our advantage, just the way the rules worked or something like that.
Oh yeah.
For us,
that was 6-map pool, right? The rules?
Yeah.
This is,
so
they
for
fixed
us,
it literally right after that.
right. So for us, we have like OGs that are expected to be able to deal with this correctly and to be able to handle this going into our NV match. For guard, they have young guys now that are like, yo, you skipped the whole group stage. Now you're in playoffs, do or die. This is your first time getting on LAN. This is your first time playing together as a group. Good luck. Oh, and by the way, your opponent is the guys you used to qualify here who also have more LAN experience than you. Most famously, FNS, when he was at COG, 2016, major in Columbus, all that, had to qualify and also there. So he knows what it's like to be at a big event.
Yeah.
Valen was, I mean, come on. This is like, it's almost not fair at this point. But, I mean, it is what it is, right? They still had to go through it with what they went through. So I can empathize with that because of the things I'm telling you, right? It's just like, man, they got top 8 for free, in theory, but they didn't go through the growing pains. And now the next LAN that they're into, guess what? They still only have 2 series under their belt on LAN.
Yeah. And it's going to feel different, another LAN, sure, but they're still going to have to adapt to those conditions on the fly. Were there any takeaways or any insights from their Paper X matchup? I think, this is the only game, the first and only game they play outside of their region at this event /ever. How do they look? Like, what's the eye test sort of tell us here? And obviously a series that they do lose.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Paper Rex, so Mind Freak especially, plays Omen the way Nitro played Omen whenever we used Nitro on Omen back, after First Strike and Masters 1 and 2. I see so many similarities because he had so much success on C, which tunneled them to be able to only use one side of the map now because they were like, well, screw it. We don't have an answer for this. We don't know how to play against this. I feel like Paper Rex played more loose and free and also had individual, like I think Forsaken too played so well that series. So I think it was just a byproduct of like, you got one group that is a lot more loose, a lot more carefree. You have another group that's probably playing really tight because they know they lose. And then also they're playing foreigners that they're not comfortable with, that they don't have experience against. So now they're having to like make all these like adaptations on the fly against a region that they're not probably familiar with. I mean, I'm sure they've reviewed and studied and did some stuff, but still, it's not the same as like, you actually play these guys, right? Like I didn't realize how Chronicle was on paper. Everyone talks about Nats being the best player. That's troll. Chronicles is the best player on Gambit, but his tape, if you study him, nothing jumps out at you until you play him and you realize this motherfucker's in our heads. He knows exactly what we're doing, where we're going. His drone times are impeccable. His darts are impeccable. What the hell? He doesn't dart like that. What is this lineup? Where's this coming from?
I mean,
that stuff you only learn when you're there.
In 2020, when coach spec wasn't a thing, and you were just in the normal spec slot, a lot of EU teams actually thought that Eng, the Gambit coach, was giving info to Chronicle, and that's how he was getting all of these reads, Like, people just couldn't believe, like, what was happening in front of them. Like, that's how good he is. He's just so insane.
Yeah, and you can't teach that. There's no way to teach. Like, that's just an innate. Some players that I've met have such a good feel for the game that, like, it comes so intuitively to them, and they can't even explain why they do these things or why they think these things or how they have this like interpretation of like a team or a player. They just do, and the read sticks. And if it wins more often than not, you just have to ride with it and just live with the consequences. But it's just crazy because Chronicles on paper, when you watch the tape, I'm telling you, he is not great, or he doesn't look like you need to focus on him. And then he just destroys everything you want to do. Just check our icebox on their attack. Like, what? And I feel like, to me, Mind Freak, that was Mind Freak and a little bit of Forsaken in that series. Because the guard just did not know how to deal with that stuff. And Mind Freak especially. But no one in NA uses Omen on C.
Yeah.
But what surprised me is the split, to be honest. Like,
right.
Because you said, like, they're playing a team from a different region or whatever else. But the way that Paper Rex plays split is just kind of just pressing W in every single like lane they can.
Every game.
Yeah.
Just every round.
This should be common in NA, right? Like that's how like loads of teams play in NA. I feel so. How are they caught that off guard by this?
They didn't. Well, it's a young team. They didn't get to play phase.
That's a good question.
In, like the Masters run.
Yeah, I'll be surprised. I'll be honest. I was also equally surprised that Paper Rex won split. Bro, trust me when I tell you I was very confident that the guard were going to win split. Like the guard was going to come back. They needed that first game. It is what it is. I was shocked that it was even close. I think at one point it was maybe like 6-5 or something.
Yeah.
I was just like, bro, what is going on? I don't know what to tell you. The only thing I can say is I feel like you don't learn enough about how to make micro adjustments on LAN. It's so different than what you do online because people are more comfortable. I think PRX just plays. Yeah,
he's just pushing out on his own completely.
Well, you know what's funny though is PaperX do that on both sides a lot.
Yes.
On A and B, on especially their defense. What's so interesting to me is that you're right. We should be used to this stuff because this is what NA scrims like. This is what they play like. I just think it's like maybe it's something you don't expect at the moment. Then you have to like get it together. Then you have to think of a game plan on how to stop it. Then all of a sudden they make another adjustment, or they have an ult on a round that maybe you didn't consider. Because have you guys ever heard of mental stack? It's a fighting game term, but I think it applies to every video game. Just nobody talks about it. Have you heard of mental stack?
Nope.
I haven't.
No.
Right. So basically, like in fighting games, the theory is like, all right, so every player should know how to anti-air or like do like an uppercut from like Ryu or whatever, so that if someone jumps, they can hit it every time. But the problem is that a lot of times in tournaments or when you're playing against a really good player, the player is so scary in so many aspects of what they call neutral, which would be like, in our term, it'd be like defaulting. Their default is so scary that when they hit you, you don't know what's coming till it's too late. When they walk up on you, you don't know what's coming till it's too late. You don't notice that some guy is literally peeking with an op. Let's say split B main. He's like walking up and he does this peek and now he's posted on you. So when you do your jump spot, you just get hit and you're like, bro, he doesn't even do this. That's a mental stack. It's like there are so many things going on that you now have to account for all of it, and you have to do it in literally, you know, in fighting games, it's like 99-second rounds. In this game, is what, like
140,
140, right?
Yeah.
So it's like it's basically the same stuff. It's like sometimes some teams put you in a position. I feel like Sentinels did that so much that they put you in a position where you're thinking about so many different things that all of a sudden you forget. They just 4-man walked up on you and just killed you, and you're just like, bro, there's no way they just did that. Like, this is not good Valorant. And it's like, yeah, but it doesn't matter because they can do anything they want, whenever they want, however they want.
On you with some bullshit and
right.
have, like,
so I feel like Valorant has mental stack where like
it's
sometimes
it's like a taxing of mental bandwidth, right?
Right.
Yeah. Like a overfull bucket kind of scenario. We've got a ton to cover in this segment, I think, because we're talking a lot high level. We're talking a lot conceptual here. We can stay in that vein. I'm kind of fine with that. I'd like to get some thoughts on this Loud team because we haven't talked about Loud yet at all today. And I think, you know, what we did here is FrosT is that, you know, you're not convinced that Sassy is just this fucking gigabrain, insane, you know, individual, and maybe that this team doesn't, have some of the subtleties in calling, but how are you feeling about this team and about sort of what we saw from them so far? Because again, another team that goes straight to the upper bracket, though, they don't seem to have too much malaise as they, you know, go up against Liquid and then G2. So they get the EU gauntlet, then OpTic's their next matchup. We've seen very little from this team, just those 2 games. What are our takeaways, and how do we feel Brazil are positioned here?
I think Sassy's a really good Sova. I just keep hearing there's too much hyperbole, especially in NA. It's actually insane. So for me, it's like he's not the best player in the world. He's just not. But he's very good. What I'll say about this team is, if you notice, I think like out of the first 7 rounds, only 1 round on their attack, only 1 round went to like 30 seconds. These guys are fast. EU doesn't like fast, right? Like, because there's a style of play in EU where, like, you know, if we can kind of joke around a little bit, right? Like, they're supposed to be the educated ones. They're supposed to be the guys that think through the game.
Sophisticated,
you know. But this is why Sentinels was such a nuisance for them early on, because that team was just fast. They killed all your timings. They were in your face before you can think. They had confidence. They were very tight with which is very different than the way Sentinels looks now. Like, even when they rushed you, they were very tight. I'd argue that Loud is basically Sentinels of last year in a sense early on, probably not as gifted mechanically and stuff, but in general, the play style is the same. They're fast. They're going to kill you. They feel like they're going to out-aim you at all times. They don't give a crap. They'll lurk up. There's a round on their defense, a minute 10 or something, where their jet is basically all the way up cat. On land, that is like, okay, these guys feel themselves. They're very confident. And G2 just didn't know how to handle it. And I feel like, you know, I'd also argue that G2, you know, in my opinion, no disrespect, outside of Avova, who I think is absolutely world-class on smokes. I thought last year he was the best smokes player in the world for the majority of the year. I mean, that roster, you know, like...
Dude, I mean, what the fuck happened? No, I thought these guys would win the whole thing.
Oh, no,
I didn't think that at any point. But, like, yeah, you can't underestimate Nuki, man. Nuki is insane. Like, and he's now
right. Yeah.
His reads on the game are just crazy. But you're completely right about, like, the speed at which EU teams play versus, like, how Loud are playing. And G2 is probably the team which plays the quickest in EU anyway.
Yeah.
So they don't have anyone to practice against who is, like, faster than them. So this will definitely have caught them off guard.
That's an incredible point. I didn't even think about that. That's actually a really good point. Also, Bancada, he was playing Cat on Omen.
Yeah.
That boy was. I felt like everything he did was right. It was insane how well they played on Ascent. Just go watch his defense. Just watch it. Just stare at the mini map and just look at what he was doing. His play on Cat was phenomenal, which is funny to me because Nitro struggled on Cat. He always liked to play B anchor. Because we tried to put Nitro on Cat. He was like, bro, it's just too hard. This guy made that shit look easy. And I don't know if it was because G2 just isn't good at Cat splitting or like, I don't know.
Very good at that, actually.
Right. So the way he played was insane. I was like, bro, this guy's nuts. This guy's Omen playing Cat. Like, and then it was just like everything he did was so good. He like helped his teammate, bro. He was so. I feel like Loud is certainly very good, in my opinion. I think Loud and I was about to say Envy, OpTic. I feel like that's going to be also in the grand finals.
Yeah, sure. I think this is the grand finals matchup as well. Loud for me, I feel like they've hit like they've hit the right moment to be able to just perform very well this event too, because the last time where we actually did see Saci and Sadak for the first time going into Masters International LAN was also, I think, when Astra first came out too. And that's when we were criticizing Brazilian teams a lot because nobody was playing Astra at that point. Even EU wasn't really playing Astra at that point as well, where now you're able to really see that playstyle that oozes up from Brazil, that over-aggression, the W's, with players like Aspas, I think, for me, is a very young fragger that looked very good when I was watching a tape of him satchel charging mid-air, Ferrari peaking on fucking Bind. I think they have a lot of firepower in this team, but I also think that the not forcing themselves to learn the Astra and playing to their style right now too really works out in this format and in this current patch in this Masters event.
Also, I gotta say, best Sheriff players in the world.
Yeah.
Like these guys, honestly, in scrims, like you scrim them a little bit, they get more Sheriff rounds than like actual full buy rounds. Like I don't know what's up with them. Like why even buy at that point?
Yeah. Right. I think the gun is way overtuned, and I think it creates such a bad environment overall because it's 2-for-1 rounds. So you have a lower round count to win than you do in CSGO, for instance. Yeah. And 2-for-1 rounds are so much more important because of this. Or like some people call them swing rounds. I don't know. I've always called them 2-for-1s. In this game, those are absolute backbreakers. And the thing is, it's almost impossible to stop. And I don't really know because people's aim are so good. Some of these players are so mechanically gifted. It's just like, oh my goodness. Yeah. But it's just like it's not an accident.
Winning 2 rounds. You know,
yeah, like if I beat you, you're on eco.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, like NA calls it sometimes swing rounds. I used to always call it 2-for-1 rounds with Blade. So that's just why, because it was like if you win this, you win the next one. So you win 2 rounds. Yeah. So we just shortened it with like 2-for-1s.
It's even scarier too when a team's able to win a bonus round in this matchup as well, or in this game rather. Once you get 3 zeros to start, it's fucking scary.
I think
5-0. That's the old 100T. We would get.
That's even worse.
We would start every game 0-5. It's like unlucky. Now we get to play the game.
I think their speed helps them with like how good they are on these pistol rounds. Honestly, like
absolutely.
Like you are not prepared for like 4 sheriffs and jet knives in your face within the first 5 seconds of the round. Like
nope.
It's hard to deal with.
And it's so accurate. At least the Deagle had some inaccuracy built in, right? Whereas in this game, no. Like even the shout out to Jovi for this, because even from the beta, Jovi was on that in the beta. Like, Hector, this gun is dumb. I can hip fire. We one time hip fired from like on Haven with pinpoint accuracy from one end of C long to the other. And he was like, bro, this is a hip fire. And I was just like, there's no way this is this consistent. He shot a whole, like 3 clips in a row. And I was like, I'm sold. No one used it then until 10 started to use it and everything else. But like Jovi, bro, like when Raze came out, like when the game came out in like June of 2020, he was like, bro, this is like the best weapon in the game. Look at it. It's insane. And it's like these value weapons are way overtuned. Back then, the Stinger was also broken. Like, I feel like we have to start, the devs at least, Riot needs to start really thinking about sort of what type of play style they want. If they want fast, aggressive, all of that stuff, that's perfectly fine. Right.
I mean,
but if they want a very
think it's-
tactical game, I feel like these guns are way too overtuned.
Yeah, but
I
think they're overtuned because it's 13 rounds to win, right? Instead of 16,
Right.
like CS. So like,
Yeah.
you gotta try and be able to win those like ecos, because
Yeah.
if you don't, then it snowballs way too.
It feels
quickly in this
like,
game.
but I feel like Riot have tried to, you know, prevent that to some degree by capping your money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mhm,
Prevent
mhm.
you from being like economically unbreakable, you know, for a quarter or half of the game kind of thing. Maybe that is one measure they took. Like, if you
Yeah.
can get up to 16K in this kind of game and you can do bullshit like that to people in
Mhm.
such like in like a shorter game, I feel like that's even worse. I remember the Stinger meta, right? we had
Arsenal was
same
on that early.
The worst was a frenzy meta for me. Just on pistol
Yeah.
rounds, 5 people
reminded me
just
of
running it down with frenzy armor. Like,
Don't
okay,
forget.
good luck.
The French finally won a CS major on the back of the CZ.
Oh, yeah.
Cluj, Napoca.
Yeah.
We were there for that.
But there was the Tech
the
9.
craziest run.
There was the Tech 9 Olofmeister
Run.
fucking era as well.
Yep,
like there's so many
yep.
of those. It's
Yeah,
you got to be
man.
so careful with how you sort of balance these sort of
Right.
cheaper weapons.
There is a way to cheat the game though. If you buy less armor, like I'm be careful with free info.
Okay.
Sometimes it's in your best interest to, but just like CS, if you're on CT, you know they all have AKs, no need for full armor. You could do very similar methods in this game based on the intel you have of teams and whether or not they have a higher amount of Vandal players as opposed
Because
to
you're dead
Vandal
to
players.
headshots regardless. Yeah.
But there's a lot more like flak damage in this game, I feel.
No.
So,
True. I'm just saying, like, there's a way to manipulate the money to allow you to invest more on like full ecos, where you could just buy a deagle and you'll make up for it over the course of rounds. Yeah, like if you study the economics of the game a little bit, you'll start realizing that like there's ways to siphon money from other rounds.
Yeah.
In order to allow you to be nerdy.
It's like how
basically.
you distribute
the best
it.
eco is still 5 marshals on Breeze. Like every defense round, just go 5 marshals. You can't beat it. Like, it's so stupid.
Breeze, Icebox are just so crazy aim maps that, like, yeah, some of these lanes are like actually really unfair. Breeze is probably the biggest aim map I think of the game.
So we got very distracted from.
Yeah, sorry.
This is fine.
From
I think
Masters.
it's fine. I don't mind where we are because I want to continue to tease out this sort of idea, this G2, right? Because obviously, I'm looking at EMEA and going, I mean, you know, we got one team that shouldn't be there, one team that's got 3 players that they call roster, and then G2. Like, hard to feel confident about this sort of region against what they're going up against. I want to here. Okay, this will color the discussion a little bit as well. Here's an aside from Benkai from Paper Rex, give you an idea of what exactly this team is about, and at least what this guy's about. So we'll roll this. We'll talk about the game.
This time around, though, APAC's actually had some good results. Have your goals changed coming into this event? What are you looking to achieve here?
Goal is still the same, man. Here for a good time, not a long time, baby.
Yeah, for a good time, not a long time.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I love that.
By the way, if you put Sideshow in a position where he actually doesn't know what to say, you've done pretty well. That's the classic interviewers. I don't know how to follow up on that. When you go, I love that. You know what I mean? So let's talk about this game. All right, obviously G2 bow out of this tournament in a bit pretty, you know, in a bit of a rough fashion. I think another one where maybe people, I expected more from them, but that could be unfounded, right? Did you guys get what you expected from G2 at this event? And I'd love to know your thoughts. Starting with you, Tanny, as well, just because you were the one saying I definitely didn't think these guys would win. How do you evaluate this G2 campaign?
I mean, like, Nicky's new to IGLing, so that's already like posing some problems. I think they had a very, very good like honeymoon period in like EMEA, because before that, like 1 week, they were actually not doing amazingly.
Not making it, yeah.
Yeah. But then just something clicked, and then it went brilliantly, and even in scrims it was going great, and then again something clicked again, and they went back to their old form. And I think that's what you see here. Like they're kind of the same in scrims too now as well. And honestly, like I am very unsure about like some people on this roster and like what
Me
they
too.
try and force a lot. Like I don't want to like shit talk anyone, but like it is like pretty known in EU that like Meadow is underperforming, especially on this roster, and this LAN performance was not great either
Yep.
for him. You know, like I think he had one good map in this whole tournament for them, and that's just not good enough for like a team which is supposed to be like the top seed coming into this after like FPX dropped out. You know, and
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
like that's why I didn't have like huge expectations for them. I expected them to get further than this, that's for sure. Like I honestly didn't expect them to go out to Paper X, but at the moment I saw Paper X play and I see like how they're playing, I knew that G2 would struggle against this. Like especially the bind, I cannot believe they left that open. Like, and that was their pick. Not only did they leave it open, that was their pick.
Why do you
They
think
really
they
felt
picked
that
this map?
confident.
Why the fuck did they pick Bind here against?
Because I genuinely
Paper
thought
X?
they think like, oh, this Yuri is like a fucking troll comp, you know, like who cares? Like people have like experimented with it in like EU, it's never gone well. But the way that Paper X play it is just completely different, and like they have so much cohesion in how they play it. Like it isn't just one person go kill. Like people like to meme this a lot, but it isn't just like Forsaken or Jing just popping off. It is everyone else following up on them. So like even if they're dying on site, there is something else coming in, some utility coming in, which you just can't stop, you know? And that was happening on so many rounds. Like you see like Jing like tagging people through his ult and then going into lamps. And then right on top of that, there's like a nade coming in. He like not Jing, sorry, Forsaken dies in lamps, and then Jing still kills like 2 people just by his nade because they have to like clear it eventually. And this is like play I have genuinely never seen in EU. I've never seen in NA from what I've watched at least either. It's just completely different, and G2 I don't think is that good of a team at like adapting well to these sort of scenarios, things which they haven't come across before, especially with a new IGL, because they rely a lot on Pipson to be able to like set them up for their games. And if he can't do that because he simply does not have like the footage or like the experience versus this sort of comp or this sort of playstyle, yeah, like you're gonna struggle with it.
I thought you were
Like, the players
describing
need
as
it
Liquid
do
to me.
well. No, I mean Liquid. No, I wouldn't say that's how Liquid play. I think Liquid are nowhere near as adaptive as G2. Like,
Yeah.
and the stuff that Pipson gives G2, I for sure know is a lot more than like the one game plan that Sliggy's giving Liquid. You know. Yeah, like honestly, this would have been surprising at the start of the tournament, but as soon as you see Paper X play, you know that G2 are going to struggle.
I just find that Forsaken and Jing definitely found their form in their games here, and I actually do believe somewhat of that meme of the Forsaken and Jing go kill kind of like strategy, especially on their defender side, because that's what Paper X is known for, to just push every single angle, just to push every single corner, every single lane, use utility to try to set up Forsaken. More importantly, at the start, to try to see if he can get a couple of first bloods and get away with it, which is why he's able to play like agents like a Euro, because he could just DP away. But if you're playing against teams that are staying super far back into like spawn side, for example, I think it was against Jerkshow when I was watching this game too, on Bind, where you haven't pistol around 2 players pushing down towards short A and pushing all the way towards teleporter, but if everybody's still winning towards cave and they get the first picks on Forsaken and Jing, what do you have left on defense at least, right? So that go kill strat and mentality on defense, I feel, is like a hit or miss at times. But at this point, it's definitely been hitting, just because they've been on a different level at this line of it.
Yeah, this is the thing. Again, like the attacks haven't actually been like some like new revelation, you know, like how Paper X have been playing. It's said defensive play. Like what they're doing on defense, you can't really prepare for. Like, because if you try and hold a default, you are just dead. Like, and there is no team in EU that plays like this. Like, not even Turkish teams are this aggressive, you know. So like, if you don't have like practice versus it, and they're playing comps which you don't know how they work, like cannot go into the like match with like confidence that you're going to like completely counter them or like anti-strat them to any level, you know?
Yeah.
It's so weird.
I'm watching
Tanishq
Hector
dropping
smile,
some
so I don't know
truth
what to say.
bombs. Oh man,
Yeah.
no, he's just dropping so much. I could add so much to that. I'm just not, because it's just not. He's dropping so much truth, but like the truth serum hurts there, because a lot of people have this misinterpretation of like G2 and Liquid. Like G2 is Liquid. Liquid just has better individual players.
Right.
That's why they look stronger and go further.
But I
That's
think they
just
play a
plain
bit
and
more
simple.
basically than how G2 play. I think
Well,
G2 have a lot deeper.
Right. That's why you
strat
said
versus-
G2 is more adaptable. Right.
Yeah.
They just don't have the individual creativity, because players like Jampy and Scream can't just like take over, right? Like they don't have
that's
the
how Liquid
ability
have
to
been
just
winning
brute.
everything.
Right. They don't brute force it. The thing to me that's interesting, so back to your adaptation thing, right, is G2 plays slow. G2 can play fast and slow. G2 against PRX, they look like 100 Thieves. They were taking it to the clock to like 30 seconds. The thing is, though, I will just say like this. Are you scrimming often while drawing out the clock? And are you getting used to, do you have protocols for what happens if, X player drops bomb in X position? Whose responsibility is it? Is it the 1, 2, 3? Like who's supposed to do this? Where are you gonna, are you in specific positions for post plant so that you can plant here or here? If you don't drill these things to death, by the time you go into LAN and tournament, mental stack, right? The thing we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
This becomes a problem, because now it looks like you don't know what you're doing, or people like me and Tanny will look at the tape and go, well, these guys are lost. But in reality, you might have a game plan. The problem was you got punched in the face. And like Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face.
It all goes
And then
out
it's
the
like,
window.
right. And the thing is, are they used to taking the game so slowly, the round so slowly? I would argue, based on everything I've heard, and different roster, but we scrimmed them obviously in the past when we went to Europe. They don't take the round slowly. When you look at a bunch of games that they play in EU, they're not a predominantly slow team. It's interesting that when faced with, an adversary that is of equal measure, rather than go brute force like, oh, you're fast? No, we'll show you fast. It's different. It's a complete adaptation that's like, no, we're going to play slow. I just wonder if they have the players to switch it up that quickly. I wonder, I don't know this for certain, so this is not me making an opinion. It's just me saying, when I think about this stuff, I go, are you capable of being able to make these switches round by round because you practice it a lot, because you theory craft it a lot, because you have run these things a lot? Or are these like adaptations that are kind of new for you too, almost like, shit, if I don't know what I'm doing, you don't know what I'm doing? I don't know. Is it fear-based? Are they just, now that they're nervous, or now that they're like, oh my God, these guys are good, now they take longer assessing plans, making mid-rounds? I don't know. But these things happen and are factors. We dealt with it at periods ourselves, where like sometimes there's so much communication in the mid-round because you have like a Nitro, you have an Ethan, you have a Josh, that before you know it, bro, there's 30 seconds left, make a call. Like there are timeouts where I have to be like, guys, what are we doing? So I don't know this for certain, but it just looks to me like they, this tournament against PRX especially, they were slow. I don't know of G2, or I don't think of G2 when I think of the teams in Europe being slow. I think of like maybe Fnatic being a lot more tactical and drawing out the clock more. FPX has that switch too.
Yeah.
G2?
FrosT as well, yeah.
Not what I would have thought, right? But it's weird if you go back and look at that split too. Long rounds. And I'm just like, man, that's super interesting. Now, in fairness, they were up 9-3. But I'm just saying that these things, I wonder if they have drilled enough in order to go against this sort of team. You know what we're going to do? We're just going to play slow and beat them. They can't stop us. They're going to kill themselves. That didn't happen. For all the things Tanny mentioned about your rule, I feel like, maybe they were just caught up in, having a specific game plan to stop specific sides of the map. For instance, I feel like on their attack, Every time they went B long, something bad happened. B long to me is the most important lane on Bind. I'm sure they prepped a lot.
Like,
right. I'm
like
sure.
if you go in B
Yeah.
main on like in Garage on Bind, like they just got
Yeah.
wrecked every single
Right.
time they went into there.
Right. And me and Tanny are very sure that they've game planned this. They thought about this. I'm just saying, man, it might just be that there's a little bit more going on, not just nerves, not just tactical changes. Maybe they just didn't have enough practice. This is why I said what Tanny is dropping the bomb on is there's no one in Europe that can replicate this. So when you run into Sentinels or when you run into PRX, good luck. This is why I said that stuff earlier. It's like people don't realize that matchups, I feel in Valorant, matchups matter way more than they ever did in CS.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes even characters, because I don't know about you, Tanny, I feel like the Breach Raise Chamber Sage Omen comp that G2 ran was dope.
Mm-hmm.
I love that comp.
I like it as well, but like
they still lost.
Yeah,
unlucky. They have the better comp.
I
they
think the
still lose.
PaperX comp is better. Like I think they're being forced onto that comp just because.
With Cypher?
Yeah, I think it's better with the Cypher.
Oh, you sound like Bancroft right now. I make fun of Bancroft a lot because, like, man, I'll just say this short. I, for a long time, tried to convince us to use Cypher, which is why Josh obviously used Cypher or whatever. But eventually, you know, he just felt more comfortable on Killjoy. And he was just so good on Killjoy that eventually you just, like, move on to Killjoy. Mm-hmm. And now I think Chamber is so good and so busted. I feel like Chamber does everything Cypher wants to do, and he does it better. And he's, like, you know, the economic stuff I think is really important, too. The swings he can give you with his Deagle and his op. And it's funny how Cypher on Fracture is the swag. In EU, Bancroft does nothing but play Cypher. And, like, we were talking about it the other day. Like, I'm like, man, I spent almost a year and a half trying to convince people that Cypher's good. Everyone laughed. Now, I think Chamber's broken, and you're like, Cypher's dope. And I'm just like, what's going on?
I've always had, like, very exceptional Cypher players on my team, you know, with, like, Power or Monster or whatever. So, like, I like to put them on the, like, comfort picks as well. And then we can make, like, plans around that. So it could be very biased. It might not be the best comp, but it's what I've just always had experience with.
But I love the comp, and they lost.
Yeah.
It's unlucky.
We can let's zoom out a little bit here. I'm going to give you a naked bracket. We're going to talk it through, okay?
Sure.
Because we started high level. We went into the weeds. Now let's just take a zoom out here. Where do we go from here? What does the rest of this sort of look like? I think Vance said he felt the Zeta Division would actually be able to beat PaperX and sort of go through. But Tanny, Frost, where are you guys at on sort of how the rest of this plays out? Let's start with this upper final. Like, give me your thoughts on sort of that one, and then we'll go from there.
You go first, Frost.
I think OpTic, mainly because of two things. First is, if Ye shows up, like Ye can, Loud will not know how to deal with this. He's going to punish them for the way that they play. Because, you know, OpTic are used to the way NA plays. They're used to this pace and space. Mm-hmm. So I feel like they have a tactical advantage there.
Okay.
Brazil, even Leviathan, which I thought was the other team that should have been here over NIP.
NIP, yeah.
Leviathan are not even anywhere near good enough to, in my opinion, replicate OpTic. So that's free to me. PaperX and Zeta to me is a push. I feel like either of these teams can win. It basically depends on who shows up. I'd argue on both of those teams, I think Laz is probably to me still is the best player overall. So I wonder if he can make the difference. But I feel like I'm not even going to try because it can go. It depends on who shows up on the day. Those teams are so evenly matched. The styles are different, right? Like, I feel like Loud is going to beat either of those teams, though, in the lower, mainly because it's not even about the speed or the pace. To be honest, I actually think just the players that Loud have are actually better, in my opinion, overall, 1 through 5. 1 through 5.
Yep.
Are overall better. I think you'll see them back. I feel like this is Envy's tournament to lose because even in the finals, the grand finals, I don't think even with all the prep work of like, okay, you know, this is what we struggled with. Maybe we should play this map instead. Well, whatever adjustments they're going to want to make, they're still going to have to deal with Ye. And unless Ye has, I don't know, 2 bad days in a row, on top of Crashies and Food not showing up, it's just hard for me to reconcile with the fact that like OpTic isn't going to win this now.
Yep.
I think that OpTic are going to win in this like best of 3, but when it comes to the best of 5, I actually think Loud might have the edge. Like if they face up against each other again.
Okay.
Like I think they just have a bigger map pool, you know, and I'm not sure that
that's true.
OpTic can keep like their momentum going for that long into like a best of 5 that they can into a best of 3.
Yeah, that's a good point because OpTic beat DRX on Icebox and OpTic are not good on Icebox. Can they do the same thing to Loud? That's actually a really good point you bring up, that the map pool might be a problem, but I still think they have a issue.
I think that Zeta get exposed in a best of 5 in that lower final.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
that changes
I'm pretty
the
sure
dynamic
we'll
a
have
lot.
a
With only one
rematch
ban.
for the final. Like unless something goes like pretty wrong, I'm pretty sure it'll be just a rematch for the final.
Yeah. How insufferable is Brazil going to be if they win, though? Have we talked about this yet?
I mean, is it worse than NA though? Like Like NA,
Yeah,
I would actually
true.
have to see the tweets, Brazilian
exactly.
stuff. Like it's in a
At least
different language. I don't need to read it.
At least I can't understand, you know, Portuguese.
Touche. Fair.
Now I think about
Oh,
it, I
man.
kind of want Japan to win now. I just want Zeta Division to take it all so that we don't hear Brazilians or NA fans just go all at it for the next couple of months at the Masters too.
Sorry? NA fans no matter what, man. You know how it is.
Actually, no,
Like,
you know what?
It's
I
not
still
even the NA fans. It's like the NA players will just be a bit more insufferable.
I'm still pretty happy. I'm still pretty happy with my OpTic pick. I think it'll be nice for them to win too, so I could shit talk Bitchman on the show live. I think also like this tweet. How am I feeling? I'm feeling fucking great. Valoranting. Thanks for asking.
I'm dumb. I just forgot about the Nookie moving into IGL situation. I just didn't occur to me at all.
Yeah.
I'll
it's
take
a
the
tough
fat L for
one.
that one.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one for sure. I mean, they've been
not
looking
many
pretty
people
good.
actually know that he's IGLing. Like
Yeah.
it's weird. Even like in the EU pro scene, like we've been doing tryouts, you know, and like we're just small talking. And yeah, not many people knew that. It's odd.
I'll wear it. All right. So, I mean, we had some fluff planned for the end of the show, but it was really just fluff. So I'm glad we actually got a chance to dig pretty deep here into the mechanics of how this should play out. FrosT, mate, great to have you on the show, dude. We'll definitely have you back. We'll have a
thank you. I appreciate it.
Super fun.
Yeah, I normally don't like doing interviews. That's why most of my career I don't really talk a lot because I've always been a man of action. I like to like do stuff. I don't like to talk about stuff. But like Van Silly and some others, you know, have basically said like, dude, no, I'm paraphrasing. Nobody knows you, but you have a lot of good insights. You should probably do more. So I've been talking to Van Silly more about like, hey man, like there's some things I should probably do, right?
Years and years of tactical FPS coaching experience. You know,
The thing about like this guy named like Simple and like Blade and you know like at some point
I mean, that was when I was a CS caster. That was like, you know, when Flipside were probably at their strongest when I was casting CS. So those were sort of good years.
That's
I
about
really
when I
enjoyed
like
that.
started watching CS actually.
Yeah.
And getting like into esports.
Like Hellraiser,
It's crazy.
Flipside.
You know what people don't know though? I was coaching, well, because of Stats Helix too, but I was coaching Rocket League, Street Fighter 5, and Counter-Strike at the same time. Because it was my org. Because what people don't know is if we ever, so the thing was, and you know, this is why like I love Blade to death and me and Merrick still talk. If we ever didn't make a major, Flipside was over.
Right.
So we made 8 in a row and it kept the lights on basically. And we just kept expanding because we kept being able to do it because the sticker money was so valuable and so important at the time. So for me, it's like, nobody really knows that, right? That like, you know, I'd wake up in the morning, Blade. Then it was Rocket League and Cooks here. And then at night it was Street Fighter. Unlucky.
What's going on for you in Valorant?
Talk about this stuff.
Are you doing anything in Valorant now? Like,
what's going on?
we're gonna see you with a team soon.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think the perception after 100 Thieves, partly because of 100 Thieves and sort of, I think the way that they released it, and I think there's some other machinations that were at work. You know, there are GMs. I will say this: one GM whose scalp I have, by the way, as we talked about earlier, one GM said, what has he done in the last 6 months? What has he done in his career? And when you look up said GM, I'm like, oh, you're pretty new. So I will just say that I think the narrative about me, I think, has really done a disservice, I think, to what I'm capable of. What I will say, though, is, back to the point that I made with Vansilly, if I don't communicate, we live in such a different world now. If I don't do things like this, if I don't, network probably as well as I should, time moves by so fast. Like, look, we're talking about flip side, right?
Yeah.
The last time we were together, the boys and I, was 2018.
Yeah.
Just think about how fast time flies.
Yeah.
It's 2020. It's 2022. I'm now on a show. I haven't done a show in like 6-7 years. So it's like, I don't know what I am currently helping NA teams. So for a time I was helping ZMM. For a time I was consulting for 2 teams that are in NA as well. And then right now I'm currently helping another team, not announced yet, but I kind of hinted as to who that team is. No idea what's going to be official or if we're going to be signed or whatever. I don't know. Okay. Who knows? But I still love Valorant though, and I still watch it like crazy because it's actually, to me, it's the perfect blending of Dota 2, which is the game I come from originally in esports. Yeah. That's how I got started. Dota 2 and an FPS. Because you have to think of timings and abilities basically the same way you would a MOBA. Literally. Everything has to be the same.
Yeah.
It's so funny, the uniqueness of a game like this. Some people say, well, it should, that's basically Overwatch.
Yeah,
I think what Overwatch lacked.
Should go coach Overwatch.
Right, but to me, the lack of individual mechanics and aim, like
individual
take Saya player, for instance. Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say this. Look at how good Saya player is now. Compare how he is now to what he was in Overwatch. There could be a day where we have Simple going from CS to here. Look at Counter-Strike breeds some super mechanically gifted tactical FPS players. And this is no shot towards Overwatch or CS. I'm just saying this game is a blending of that super mechanical robot like Ethan. I used to nickname Ethan T2000 from the Terminator because to me,
sure.
Because every time I looked at, because I have everyone's POVs, right? Like every scrim, bro, Ethan's a robot. Ethan is a robot. Mechanically, it's actually insane. If you told me I think he cheats, I'll laugh and be like, yeah, he does. It's just natural. I don't know how. So that player now has to think like a Dota or a League player. This is what we're breeding now. This is why players like Asuna, this is why all these young players, right? Like Cryo, Xander, this is what they're born into now. They're no longer shackled by the old principles and rules of CS. You sure want to know all that stuff because the amalgamation of all that knowledge is what makes you make decisions faster. But dude, this game is special. It's unique in that way that I'd argue, and this might be controversial, but I feel like, if a League of Legends player ever wanted to coach Valorant, he can. Okay. Because the insights he'll have on timings, ability usage, and more importantly, team play I think, apply to this game.
Isn't that Sasi or Sadak that came from League of Legends?
Sasi,
yes.
Right?
Yeah. Jesse from Team Secret, who by the way, probably the best gamer in the world ever. No one talks about though. No one realizes, bro. The guy has, I have as a coach and an owner, world titles in other games, right? This guy as a player has 5 different genres of games that he's a champion in. Riot refuses to put him on. To me, the face of the game has been Hiko for the first early part of this. I don't know if you guys agree, but I think the face of the game has been Hiko. I feel like globally, the face of the game should be Jesse from Team Secret because this guy is. If you just study just go to his Wikipedia, please. That guy is actually insane and nobody realizes it. Sure, he's probably not the best Valorant player in the world, but for a guy like that to compete at a high level in this game too, I mean, I feel like there's not enough superlatives that we should give players like this. And I feel like those guys should be the ambassadors of the game, because it's those guys that are going to bring more players to this game, more Fortnite players, more, mobile players, more Call of Duty players, more. Those guys are the vehicle to be like, you can do it too.
Yeah.
And I feel like we need to start encouraging that stuff rather than I think the only CS only stuff, which as much as I love CS, I just think it's a great base. It's like MMA. If you guys are familiar with MMA, wrestling is the best base for MMA. That's what CS is. It's the best base for Valorant. That does not mean you can't be highly skilled in other disciplines and come in here and, destroy people.
Yeah.
You haven't done an interview in 7 years, but I'm glad your return was with us, Edgar.
Thanks to you. Actually, you're the December. Something you said in December sparked the fire in the butt.
Well, look,
It took 4 months for you to do this.
You have a chance, I think,
Unlucky.
as well to impact the narrative as well. There's
Yeah.
a lot of agency there, so I think
Yeah.
for that reason we'll try and hopefully we can make this a bit more of a regular thing. But yeah, thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. A lot of insights that really help us paint a picture, I think, of what is going on in Iceland, especially for people who are also trying to understand the tendencies of other regions and maybe what makes them special. Tanny as well, man. Thanks for coming on the show. It was great to
Pleasure as
Yeah.
always.
have you as usual.
Yeah, I'm actually a huge fan of Tanny, because in some of the coaching discords and stuff, I actually can
Oh yeah,
read what
you
he
are
says.
in
I
the
never really
coaching
comment.
Discord, yeah.
Yeah. So I have to say, sometimes I love your take. Sometimes just something you say makes me laugh. I never personally reach out because I don't know, I'm a weirdo. But I will say, now that I actually got to put a face, I'm like, oh man,
Now we
Get ready for the DMs, Teddy. He's gonna be
right. I'm
sliding.
glad I can. Yeah.
Vitality first,
Yeah.
anyone?
Oh,
Oh,
I mean,
we'll see. We'll see.
all right.
we'll see.
Well,
Anyways, all right, boys.
we're gonna close up shop. Yeah, everybody, thanks for joining us today. Hopefully, you've managed to learn plenty about what's been going on, especially a lot of these regions that are maybe ones that aren't normally in your purview. We're gonna be back next Tuesday as well. We'll be wrapping up, of course, the whole fucking shebang. So that's going to be a fantastic conversation. Thanks everyone who was here today. Hope you all learned something. We'll see you next Tuesday, 11 a.m. PT. Been a pleasure. See you next time.